Hey everyone, Andy here. I just want to put out a quick warning. We do talk about spoilers in this podcast, so if there's a game you haven't played, please listen at your own discretion. Salutations and welcome to the Manabar Video Game Podcast Special Edition Game of the Year.
Limited
Spectacular
collector's edition makes
extravaganza
Cowabunga.
with vengeance.
I don't
know what
Die Hard
vengeance,
3.
but sure.
Underrated Die Hard.
That's my favorite Die Hard.
Yeah, you know what? It's like aside from the last one that came out, which was like unwatchable, it's the least, like it's like the worst one on Rotten Tomatoes with vengeance.
Really?
Like really, like Die Hard 2 sucked. Die Hard 2 was like the forgettable one.
Yeah.
I actually have forgotten.
It was in an airport.
Of the three, yeah.
I actually have forgotten that. And I feel like we've talked about
We
this
have.
Die Hard
I'm pretty sure we have
movie.
to.
I love it.
So this is our special Game of the Year edition. We are recording this on Saturday, December 22nd. We are not going to be doing an episode next week because of the holiday season, and Christmas is literally on the day we record podcasts. So we're not going to be doing that. Instead, today we're going to be going through 10 categories that I mentioned on a previous episode, and we're just going to kind of play it by ear here. We're not planners here.
No, we don't know what we're doing.
We have no idea what we're doing.
It's gonna be a trash ball of fire.
Last March,
this
we each
cast.
bought a mic and decided, let's just see what happens.
We figured we'd just yell at each other for an hour.
This is the is it culmination?
Culmination?
What is it?
Culmination.
Culmination. This is the culmination of that. I always get that word mixed up. So we have maybe 10 categories. We're still a little unsure about one.
We have some number of categories about some games that we may or may not have played of this year.
Yeah.
And some of other years. We'll see.
And so we had 10 categories, but then it got brought up. One of our categories is Best Indie Title of the Year, and not all of us have played a lot of indie titles, so we were unsure on whether or not we should keep that category. But then the other category we sort of picked out was something I came up with, which was Missed Opportunity, which is like the best game that came out this year that none of us played.
Which is also hard to judge as the best game of that.
I think, all right. So here, in my opinion, this is I think what we should do. So we have a few categories here that I think should just be like kind of participation trophies almost, because it's like not something that we can really like. We all played different games that came out in previous years. We all missed games that we're all going to have. It's like a personal opinion thing, like that you can't really give an award to. Like, we're giving awards out to, like, most of these categories, but I think there's a couple that's going to be the case. So why don't we start off with that? Why don't we start off with Missed Opportunity? Like, what was the best game that came out this year that you're like, or maybe not even the best, just like your one game that came out this year that you cannot wait to play and still haven't yet?
Can I start this?
Sure, go on.
Certainly.
So, there was I usually don't typically like turn-based games. But this one threw a new spin on it, and I thought it was very interesting. It's called Slay the Spire.
Ooh.
So basically, it's a card game. It's kind of similar to like Metal Gear Acid, where it's you're in like a dungeon. It's like a 2D like dungeon scroller thingy, and you build a deck, and your deck is full of attacks, magic
Is this
things.
what is this for?
Everything. You can play for the Switch, you can play for PS4, PC, whatever. And it got fantastic ratings, and it had me drawn in. But again, that whole no physical release, but
What's the name of the game?
Slay the Spire. But it just did get a physical release, and I was very, very interested. The reviews were off the charts for it. And I like deck building games. So it kind of takes away the turn-based if it's more of like a it's not the same typical, moves they're going to have, like attack, defend, whatever. This one...
What was the physical edition for?
Switch. And everything. I have PS4, Xbox One.
Which is... Oh, so it did get a physical release
It
everywhere.
did get a physical release, which
It's funny because you think I don't know if this is still a thing. Remember when the Switch first came out and there was that whole thing about like the cartridges were much more expensive to make. So a lot of... Like, it's surprising to see a game like that do a physical release on everything, including the Switch, considering that people were complaining that the Switch cartridges were more expensive to manufacture, which is why originally I think there were some games that it was more expensive to get on Switch because of that reason.
Yes,
they
I
were
remember.
interesting.
They were like $10 more, and then
Rhyme was one of those that I
Yeah,
remember.
that's the one I'm
And
thinking
it was out
of,
for
yeah.
like a while too, and it was like an extra like $10 when you could get it for really really cheap on the other system. But I mean, I get it. The idea that you can take it anywhere, that's one of the reasons I bought Skyrim for the 5th time on Switch, is just because the idea that you can take it anywhere and you can't do that with your your PlayStation. Or
Which
your
is funny
Xbox.
because that's like the first time I played Skyrim was on the Switch.
so you're the reason they keep making that game.
Yeah, I'm sorry. And then the other one I had for missed opportunity, as I scroll through my wonderful list of stuff.
He actually had both of you have paper.
Yeah,
I'm
we
very
had
proud
to.
of both of you. I haven't had a good notebook in a while, so I didn't write anything down.
Oh, well, this is the original one, the original notebook that we
The first one they've ever made.
Yeah, well, yes.
Yeah, I'm wondering where this is going too.
How did Dan get
From
the first
when we
notebook?
decided to make a podcast. This is the notes and everything on
Yeah,
it.
see that's the thing. When we decided to make the podcast, I was using like an art book, like a blank canvas art book. It's not really good to take notes on, but that's what I was like using a Sharpie.
Oh, okay.
So
So the other one was the other game. I think we talked about it last week, but
Astral Chain.
yeah, it was Astral Chain. I thought that
That's
was
one of mine.
So yeah, that looked like something that was kind of interesting. Again, I just feel bad because it is so expensive and it is a hack and slash. I just have a hard time wanting to pay the $60 for it.
Yeah, it's about like Nintendo games. It's so rare that Switch games will go on sale of any sort. So it's like
Yeah, especially if it's something like that's really really popular, or it ends up getting like a great reviews. I mean, Doom still hasn't gone down in price for the Switch. It's still $55.
Oh, it's a bummer. Yeah, which is a special bummer because you can get it on like PSN for like $20 usually.
Yeah, and you can get the physical edition for under 20.
I downloaded it on Game Pass. That was one of the games I added. Was
Doom? Good.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. Play it.
So those are my two I have for missed opportunity this year that I did not get to play that I was very very interested in.
Yeah, so I'll just go because Astral Chain was one of mine too. Again, it's like I don't have a lot to say about these games just because I can't really give them their fair credence, except that I mean we've been talking about Astral Chain for the last few weeks about like this missed game of the year that we haven't really heard much about, but the more I hear about it, the more I want to kind of give it a shot too. So I'm hoping.
Which is funny because I just brought that up at random.
Yeah.
That like came out of nowhere for me. And
Which
we
is
even
funny.
had someone email in about it, which was funny.
Yeah, it does seem like a game that we would all enjoy. Like it just kind of seems like a style we would like. Another game is Disco Elysium, which
Oh,
Yes, I
I heard more about at the Game Awards, and I've been kind of delving further into RPGs. Like I want to play a good role playing game, and I'm kind of getting frustrated at this kind of shift towards
Yeah,
like
you were
East-
definitely the like RPG man this year.
Yeah, like I feel like RPGs have really shifted to this Western style, like where it's like Fallout. It's like open world. You're like one person. It's like action oriented. But I want to kind of get back to that kind of older style where it's either turn based or like this is more. It looks like it's more dialogue heavy, kind of over
Building a story and stuff
yeah.
like
And
that.
it's like
But
you know
you liked Outer Worlds. That was kind of more dialogue heavy.
It was, but that was kind of like that Western style. Like I a lot of it has to do with what kind of action and combat it's going to be. Like that's kind of more.
Oh,
I don't know. I'm kind of getting stale. Feel like that's kind of getting stale for me. Like I really like that kind of more tactical, taking your time action when I'm playing a role playing game.
Is that why you're excited for? I guess there's not too many role playing elements in it, but Crystal Chronicles is being remade. You were mentioning for January.
Yeah, I want
right?
to play that. It was coming out in yeah, actually, that's a good thing you brought that up because I think I mentioned it was coming out in January 23rd a couple weeks ago, and it actually got pushed back like right after we did that podcast. It got pushed
really?
back to summer of 2020.
Oh my God, that's a
which sucks,
huge
'cause
pushback.
Yeah,
like,
it was
right
originally
before it
supposed to
comes
come out this year at this quarter, and then they pushed back to Q1, and now they're pushing it back to like summer sometime.
Oh
so.
wow, that's a huge pushback. But not like most of the
Which is
huge
weird
things
'cause-
are coming out earlier in the year, so maybe it's good that it's coming out in the summer.
Yeah, maybe it's just. I mean, we can't talk about this next week, but it's just kind of strange because it's just a remake of a GameCube game. How much, like, how
Yeah.
far behind? It's not even like a remake. It's just like they're re-releasing it with some new added features.
Yeah, I'm
but-
glad. I never got to play it, so I'm really glad that they're
Yeah.
remaking it.
So on the other game I wanted to play, and this one I'll be able to play pretty easily, is Gears 5.
Oh,
So I got an Xbox last month, as most people know, and one of the games that came with it was Gears 5, and I haven't gotten around to it because I feel like I want to play the first 4 gears before I get into that. So it's going to be this long process.
Well, if you want to play it together, I'll join you in the campaign.
Yeah, it's but just because it's like the kind of the biggest Xbox exclusive I feel like of this year. I want to give it a shot and see kind of when they're doing their best, what they can bring to the table. But yeah, those are my missed opportunities.
So I as well had Astral Chain on mine, and again, it's just based on like the recent conversations we've had lately. It's definitely a game I want to at least give a shot to. I just now, after hearing you added Disco Elysium to my list, that is definitely a game that I want to. I didn't even know about it. It just came out. It was PC only. But I really want to check that out. One other game that I've been thinking about a lot lately. I was looking up reviews on it, and I've been kind of fast and loose with this franchise throughout its run. Was Fire Emblem Three Houses, which is that's. I do like Matt. I like to sink my teeth into some RPGs every now and then. I like to kind of go back and forth between something like Outer Worlds and then like a turn-based RPG. Like I don't mind turn-based, but I do like to kind of change it up every now and then. And Fire Emblem was just one of those ones where I wasn't sure about it. It kind of looked like this one looked like a very Harry Potter musical or something like that, where it's like we're all in school, but I didn't realize it like went back and forth between like past and present and stuff like that. And like the things you do in the past affects the future. And I think that's really cool. So that's one that I really want to check out. Also, I mean, this is a little different for me. It was like the biggest to-do of the year and I didn't play it. Yeah, it was Death Stranding. So
that's a good one that you should play. That's one of those things that people that play video games should play for no other reason but just and discuss it.
It's not. I don't want to play it because I think I'm going to love it. I want to play it because it's just. I want to be in the happening. Like I want to know what the big to do was about. I'd like to be able to have my own thoughts about it.
It's also one of those games that if you watch, it's boring, but if you're playing it, it's because you're just watching, all the, him carrying all the stuff. But the idea is that is part of the game is to make sure you get from point A to point B without ruining everything, and it's not easy, especially later in the game, to go from point A to point B. So playing it is actually the fun, the actual fun part of it.
I'm more in it for
than
the
just seeing
story. Actually,
the story too. Yeah.
Like I just want to know like what it's about.
Yep.
Or I could just be like what my girlfriend does. If my girlfriend, what she does with like movies and video games, where if she doesn't think she'll want to play through the whole thing or doesn't want to see it, she'll just instantly look up the entire plot instead and just read through it. Oh, by the way, I don't know if she's still here or not. Never mind.
Fair enough.
I'll talk about this later. Anything else for this category? Oh well, you guys already won. I'm done. Death Stranding, Astral Chain, Disco Elysium, and Fire Emblem Three Houses were my big
that's
awards.
Good.
I want to hand out.
This is a category we're not really going to do a specific winner.
Yeah,
just because obviously it's.
Well,
kind
it seems
silly.
like Astral Chain is kind of
I guess
universal here.
I would say that each of these games I think deserves mentioning because they at least captured our attention enough to want to play it past this year.
It's just a bummer where there's only 3 of us, and this is just kind of like a part-time thing. We don't have the time or resources to really play every game that kind of deserves to get played throughout the year. So it's kind of good to just point those out.
Yeah. So I'd like to move on to because it kind of goes with with that last category. Let's do late to the game, and just to explain this to other people, this is basically games that came out previous to 2019 that maybe we just didn't get a chance to play, or we've just always wanted to and never had the opportunity, and we played it this year and just absolutely loved them. So there was only one for me that I could think of that was like a clear cut, because I was going for more clear cut. Like, what would my number one answer be? Because
I had a hard time with this too, because there was like not a lot of games I played that were before this year that were like.
I feel like you played a lot of RPGs that came out
you played
before
Legend of
2019.
Dragoon, you played Final Fantasy 13, you played a bunch of
Final Fantasy 15,
a lot of PlayStation 1 games. The Psych, I can't.
Intelligent Cube, all the Sega Genesis things, all the PlayStation Classic things.
All right.
Do you want us to do the category?
Yeah, I was going to say,
you? Yeah, maybe you guys should do.
So I'll go ahead with this one. So I played quite a few games that came out previous to 2019, but there was
the
only,
Bargain Bin Gamer.
The Bargain Bin Gamer. There was only one where I'm like, oh, that was the best game I played this year that came out previous, and that was Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Because Spider-Man came out in 2018, correct?
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I was a little worried about Spider-Man. I thought it was going to get boring, but man, they just did an amazing job, no pun intended, with that game. The story was great. The combat was frustrating at times, but once I think I figured out I was doing something wrong with the combat or something, or there was that like the really overpowered web shooter thing.
Yeah,
that
the
you guys
web
kept
blossom.
talking
Oh yeah,
about.
you weren't doing like the specials, so which makes a lot of the fights easier.
I wasn't doing the web blossom.
Oh, yeah, that's-
specifically.
That semi broke the game because it was so
Yeah,
overpowered. I
so
would
think
just go
about
into
this.
group and use it.
I got to the end of the game without that until
Yeah.
the very end. So
Yeah, I heard they
I'm
nerfed
better
it.
than both of you.
They like updated it and kind of
Spider-Man.
made it not as good.
I don't think I even used that one. So
It was one of the first ones you get, and I just like.
maybe it
spammed
was. Then
and
maybe
just-
I did.
I think I didn't realize I could change the special. Or I liked the first one they gave you so much that I just kept it. But yeah, Spider-Man was great. The story was great. It felt like I was playing through a superhero movie. It was a very gripping storyline. They had like post-credit scenes, which was great. I'm really hoping. I assume they're making a sequel.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited for that to come out. Now this is probably going to be a day one buy for me next time when the sequel comes out. So. Other games that I played that I guess are just honorable mentions that came out. I replayed through Minute. I guess it doesn't count because I replayed it, but I don't remember playing it the first time. But Minish Cap,
counts.
Zelda the Minish Cap, that was super fun. It made me kind of go into down this rabbit hole of like, oh, I want to play like a lot of sprite-based games because I kind of miss those. Earthbound and Final Fantasy VI. Those were two that I played in the SNES Classic. That were older. Earthbound was one I had never played before, so that was pretty exciting. I think that's it. All the other games that were prior to 2019, I was just kind of replaying or reinvigorating myself in, which I guess was kind of like what Matt was doing with
Yeah, it still counts.
a lot of games. But yeah, Spider-Man was just the one that instantly came to my mind as like, oh yeah, that's like the clear-cut one that I absolutely loved that came out prior to 2019. Dano?
So I had two. One of them was thanks to Andy pushing me to play it because he knew I'd probably like it. It has musical instruments in it, and you got a boat. And...
Wind Waker?
There you go. So the Wind Waker.
What musical instrument is in Wind Waker?
Sorry, you're more like a director, but the wands and you direct. Conductor, whatever the hell kind of.
Love you.
Yeah, shut up. Anyway, Wind Waker has been awesome to play. I just got distracted by the new Zelda, but it is one I do want to go back and finish. I have it on my pile of to be finished. So Wind Waker would be definitely one of them, and the other one that definitely came out of nowhere for me was a game called Vampire. I enjoyed the heck out of it. I have not completed it yet, but I am very, very far in it.
That wasn't a 2019 release? I thought that was a 2019 release.
That was 2018.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So that was an older one, yep. So I picked it up thinking that, I'm going to play it for maybe an hour and then just maybe not like it and just kind of put it on my shelf and forget about it. But they had a lot of interesting mechanics. Like any NPC in the game you can eat pretty much, or you can steal their like soul or blood or whatever. So
Sounds rude.
Yeah, so you can really be, a good guy or a bad guy type of thing in this one. I'm trying to go through and keep everyone alive because you're also a doctor, which is kind of funny. And so you can like kind of seduce people like into the hospital, like, oh, we can help you, and then if they're a high level person, that's a lot of experience you could gain by taking away their life force, kind of like BioShock, where you could either take the girl's like soul or whatever or not, and it gave you a crap ton of experience, or if you want the good ending, you need to stray away from doing that. But no, I've been enjoying it. It's a like simple hack and slash. It's a small company that made it. So
Did you ever end up finishing that game?
no, but I'm very, very close, and I do want to go back. Greedfall push that one back because Greedfall was made by.
Did you finish Greedfall?
No, I want to play Greedfall as well. I had to play enough games so that I could make a list on each one.
Yeah, just like giving you shit.
Yeah. Anyway, so those were my two big ones that I played for older that I played a lot of that I want to
I'm glad
finish.
Wind Waker made the list.
Yeah,
It's
no,
a
Wind
really
Waker's
good game.
really fun.
Every Zelda fan who still hasn't played Wind Waker, where they think like, oh, that cartoony style just won't work for me, play Wind Waker. It was a great game.
It's also it's very like modern. I'm playing it on the Wii U, the HD version, and it plays like a new game. Just like you pick up now. It's very simple. You know, whatever direction you're aiming, and you hit the attack button.
I have a hard time with the first few hours of that game. It's like you get in that dumb prison and there's like a lot of like water.
It is so slow.
It is, but once you get past that, it is just like a great Zelda game. It's the typical, you know, you have to be think outside the box, and okay, this is doing this, and it's been really fun.
I know Nintendo listens to this podcast, obviously.
Yep.
Please bring it to Switch.
A guy named Nintendo.
I mean, I wouldn't mind.
I know. I'm.
I want him to
several times. I was at GameStop last week, and I was pretty close to buying a Wii U just to play it in HD. But that's a dumb reason to get a Wii U. I just need
especially
them to
when
bring it to
everything
Switch.
is being ported over now.
Yep, not everything, because Twilight Princess and Wind Waker haven't come to Wii U yet. It's really to the Switch yet. It's really annoying. But anyways, were there any others you wanted to mention?
Nope, that's it for really late to the game ones that I can think of off the top of my that I wrote down.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so I would say there was a few of them. The first one I've been playing recently was the Final Fantasy 13-2 game. I had actually bought it like when it came out, and I played it for like a couple hours, and I just couldn't get into it. I think part of that is just because the story's so convoluted that it's something you really should be playing like right after the 13, because it's like that story is confusing enough with all those gods, and you know, we've talked about recently just like the confusing storyline, and then if you want to just throw in like time travel and different paths of time, it just gets super more confusing. But like I said, I've been really into turn-based strategy, turn-based like role-playing games, and I like that it's like a really fast-paced too. I feel like that's something Square has been kind of toying back and forth with. Like with 10-2, they made that kind of the dress sphere, and I don't know if you played that game, but it plays really fast, which I really enjoyed. So I mean, even though the story itself wasn't that great, the combat was a lot of fun, and that's kind of how I felt like this one, where like maybe the story isn't the strongest that a Final Fantasy has been, but the combat is kind of like it's the most fun I've had with like RPG combat in a while, just because it's so fast paced, but still tactical strategy, and like you have to kind of figure out what you're going to do before you enter battles, and you know, change what classes you're playing. So yeah, I just really enjoyed playing it. On top of that, I played Toe Jam and Earl on the Sega Mini System.
Oh yeah.
That is a game for the Sega Genesis that I used to play it a lot when I was growing up. My friend James was over, and we just needed something to do, so we started playing it. It's 2 players. The Mini comes with 2 controllers, which is nice. And it's just like it's a pretty short game. It only took us like less than 2 hours to beat, but it's, you know, you're just going through level by level. You're these 2 crazy aliens who crash landed on Earth, and you got to find all the pieces to your ship to kind of rebuild it so you can go back home to Funka Planet, Funkatron, or whatever it's called. Yeah, you're 2 like 90s, like basically like stereotypical hip hop guys, which is kind of funny. And there's like there's a lot of funny enemies. Like there's a Cupid that shoots arrows at you.
Is that the one with like, isn't there like a dance, like a hula dancer?
Yeah, there's a
like
hula
that?
dancer. So if you get too close to her, you'll just start like dancing uncontrollably, which means like the other enemies can like follow you. There's like there's a group of sheep that runs around and tries to shoot tomatoes at you. There's like a lot of just kind of funny characters in the game, and they've got this kind of interesting kind of, especially for the time, random present design where you get items, but they're just kind of random presents, and you kind of don't know what you're going to get. Sometimes it could be like some sort of tomato shooter, or sometimes it can be like it'll give you extra cash. Sometimes it'll heal you, but then sometimes it'll like kill you instantly, or take some of your health away, or like give you like jet shoes that could make you fall off the edge of the map and have to go to the level before you. So it just kind of adds this like wacky randomness to it. But yeah, we played through it. We actually finished it just barely, and it was a lot of fun. It made me remember all the times I played it, you know, when I was much younger. On top of that, the other game I wanted to mention was Legend of Dragoon, which is a game I've played before. I've talked about it. I love it. But I think what was kind of particularly special about this year is there seems to be this kind of growing underground murmur about like a potential remake, especially with Blue Point Gaming just like cryptically tweeting about Legend of Dragoon and some other games. I've been kind of following the subreddit on Reddit too, and like there's been a lot of talk about just different creators like, talking it up on Twitter and mentioning it. So it seems like there's kind of this underswell of support for a remake, which is kind of getting my hopes up, and that's probably not a good thing because I'm sure it's probably not going to come out. It's not going to happen, which means the next 3 years I'm just going to be like, oh, is this the E3 that they announced Legend Dragoon? Is this when it's going to finally happen? And it's never going to happen. But
I think it may. I think if they remake it, I think that game will hit a much bigger audience than it did with PlayStation 1, where it had so many RPGs to compete with. So I think with this one, if it came out, I think a lot of people would be super, super interested in it. So
yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see.
So I would say this is the last of the this one I'm about to name is the last kind of honorable mention participation trophy round question, or at least I feel like this, and that was like most happening moment, because I feel like we all have our own versions of like what was the biggest, most happening moment of the year. Do you two disagree with that, or do you two think we need a clear-cut winner for this one?
No, I think this is, again, personal, probably.
I think we could have a winner for that.
Well, Dan and I agree, and
fine.
You really
Let the audience know I disagree.
Watch, we're gonna have the same answer anyways. Matt, why don't you start us off?
Okay. Most happening. I guess my number one would be, if I wanted to start off with a bang, would be kind of the whole BlizzCon issue with oh wait, so hard. What now?
Happening moment.
Happening moment.
Yeah, not
That's
dumpster
like
fire.
That's
Yes.
happening moment was like, wow, like in the happening.
Yeah, this was the category you came up with.
Yes. I would say someone else go first. I need to think for a second.
All right.
Confused.
I would think, to me, the most happening moment of the year, like that to me, most happening moment is like, you got to we talk about it all the time. We coined the phrase, you got to be in that moment. That's like the biggest moment of the year in gaming. You have to be involved. You have to be in the know. And it's a moment that I missed. I would say it was Death Stranding, to be honest. That's the game that everybody had been talking about. Everybody wanted to know what it was. That, to me, that was the most happening moment of the year. There were other things that happened. Like, obviously, there was, you could say E3, you could see the Video Game Awards or something like that, but those are both lame. So, or like, to me, like, even a game that I didn't play, or maybe not a game I think is the best game that came out this year, it's definitely like, that was like the thing, like, everybody wanted to know, like, what was Kojima going to do? Like, what was the story going to be about? What was the game going to be about? It was going to take anything from the PT playable trailer for Silent Hill that Kojima did. Like, it was just that was like the happening moment to me. If I had to pick a runner up, it would probably be no, I don't really have a runner up, to be honest.
What about the first time you hopped into like Apex Legends? You found like another battle royale.
Yeah, that was a pretty happening moment, because that blew up for 1 week, and then
Yeah, that was a crazy week. It was like
instantly
much
went
bigger
down.
than Fortnite. Everyone was playing it. Like on Twitch, there was a lot more people watching Apex Legends than anything
Yeah, because I
else.
know you were
It
pretty
just came out of
excited to
nowhere.
find some battle royale that you liked and enjoyed.
yeah, that was definitely
like,
one that I
self-launch
liked.
was really cool.
And how it like quickly and quietly just launched, and then it just became like this big
It was
thing.
big for like a week, and then it instantly, like, or a month, and then the numbers like really dipped back down. Dan, what would you say is the most happening moment of the year?
I would have to agree that Death Stranding, the first time you're out and about in the world, and that moment when your what's it called? Your exoskeleton is running out of battery, or your car is running out of battery, and you drive up and you see someone has put a generator, right at the spot where your thing was going to die, and you're like, oh my god, thank you, whatever this online player is, thank you so much for putting this here, because you definitely, so you're giving them like 1,000 likes while you're sitting there waiting to regenerate. So it was just literally going around the map and seeing all the people that posted things here and left you items, and were delivering your equipment that you couldn't finish. So like if
They can pick up your deliveries?
yeah,
Oh,
you can
that's
so
interesting.
you can drop it. Like if I was in an area that I was like, oh, this thing's gonna break before I even get remotely close to this thing. Plus, I decided to head in a different direction. So I was like, here, I'm just going to put this in and trust it to somebody else. And then the next time you go online, you can see what the status is. And if they finished it, you get points as well as they get points for delivering it. And so you just see a lot of basically things that players did. Like, oh, they use the road that you created, or they use the ladder, or they use the zip line that you created, and then you see how many likes total that you've gotten in the past few days. So I would say Death Stranding was probably the number one, but also day one Call of Duty, considering I skipped the last one, and I didn't really love the Modern Warfare. Excuse me, not the Modern Warfare, the World War II one.
Yeah.
This one, I was very excited day one to play it. It actually felt a little bit like when I was going back and playing Modern Warfare 2. I was just very excited to jump in and, try and get all the weapons really quickly and understand the levels, really quickly so that, I'd have an advantage over people that start later. So really, those are the two biggest ones that I had for this year for most happening moment.
Yeah, I had a few. So sorry, I was reading this wrong, but the so when I wrote Blizzard on my sheet of paper, what I meant was just kind of all the announcements that were happening. So we have Overwatch 2.
Oh, BlizzCon.
BlizzCon.
Okay,
yeah.
not,
So I
okay.
had this in two different categories. That's why I screwed it up. But
Which
yeah.
is fun because biggest announcement is another category.
Yeah. So I mean, the reason exactly there's so many big announcements, like how many people are going to be looking forward to Overwatch 2, which seems like kind of a surprise to me, just because it's such. I feel like you can just kind of continue Overwatch 1. And then the other big one was obviously Diablo 4, which is kind of a huge thing. So just and then, I mean, all the other little things they announced with the World of Warcraft expansion.
If I had to pick one for you, I would assume it was WoW Classic. Because you jumped in there.
I thought that would be the most happening moment, yeah.
Yeah, that was actually, that's a good point. I kind of removed that from most of my consideration because it's this 15-year-old game that's
yeah, but it was
that was
it
still
was
a happening
reliving it.
moment.
Yeah, it was
Yeah, exactly.
reliving. It was
Of the
everyone
year.
going back.
yeah,
and-
it was kind of.
I mean, I even jumped in for a month. That was pretty huge, and you're still playing it. You're still you played that nonstop.
Yeah,
for a few weeks.
That's true. It's kind of crazy just going in there on day one when everyone is level 1 in those same first starting areas, fighting all the mobs.
This is a funny thing
The
I have to
game's-
mention right now. I'm sorry.
Sure, what's up?
So I'm writing down the answers that we give as we're doing it, so I can post it. And because I'm so used to doing the production for the podcast, when I wrote BlizzCon, it auto-corrected to hashtag BlizzCon because of all the hashtags I add to
Nice.
the things. But I'm sorry. Go on.
Yeah, it was just interesting with all the different crashes that they had too, and then those first 2 weeks there was a lot of hacks where people just couldn't play for an entire weekend or days at a time, which was kind of interesting too. Just to see that it's still going pretty strong. I'm still actually playing it every week, not as much obviously, but just doing the rating and seeing what they're going to come up with next as far as when the next kind of major patch that happened 15 years ago is going to come is kind of exciting to watch. The other thing I wanted to mention was just Bungie getting semi leaving Activision and getting the rights to Destiny back,
Oh, that's a good one.
which is kind of interesting, to see kind of what they're going to do next,
Yeah, that's a really good
where
one.
they're going to take.
I forgot. Did that happen this year or last year?
I think it
that was
happened.
this year.
Yeah, this year. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so to see where they're going to take the kind of Destiny license, if we're going to get this brand new one without any sort of microtransaction trash, and maybe they'll have some time to actually finish it and kind of create the games they want to. It seems like there's already been pretty positive feedback about the kind of more recent expansions too. So
I'm confused. What's the difference in your mind between this category and the category that's biggest announcement?
biggest announcement would be video game or console or something, right?
I had that. I had a game.
I mean, that's what I have too. All right. I just want to clarify
I mean,
for the listeners and
Okay.
for I guess me.
fair.
Who is also listening?
Hey, we warned them from the beginning. We're doing this haphazardly. So that's what they get. But,
Haphazardly.
anything else?
Mm-mm.
All right. So now the fight begins.
Now the fight begins. I'm trying to think.
nice.
I think I had one more for most happening moment, but I just can't for the life of me remember what
I mean,
it was.
there's a little honorable mentions. I guess E3 is happening every year. Game
Yeah,
Awards. I
that
don't know if
just-
you
E3
want
was
to
kind
count
of
those.
quiet. It was a state of play. I mean, it could have been anything with Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
So
I guess Keanu Reeves and the whole cyberpunk thing, that was pretty happening.
True.
And the release date of Final Fantasy VII officially announced.
Well, why don't we get into biggest announcement? I'll start because I have two, and Dan just mentioned one of them.
Whoops.
The release date for Final Fantasy VII.
That was pretty big.
That
Really?
made me audibly, Matt could hear it from my room. That made me audibly cheer when I saw new footage. The game was real. There's a release date, and they've so far stuck to that release date, and that just to me was like one of the biggest announcements of the year. The other one, and I guess both of these are like fanboy announcements, but the other one would be just a huge surprise. We all agreed that Nintendo won E3, but their final announcement of the Breath of the Wild sequel, that was like, oh my god, really?
Yeah, that
like,
came out of
Breath
nowhere.
of the Wild 2? Like that was huge because I loved Breath of the Wild. That was like my favorite game. That was my favorite game of the year that came out. And to just like have like a direct sequel to that, which is so like that doesn't happen all the time with
Yeah, especially with Zelda games. Like
Zelda
they seem
games.
to shy away from that. It seems like we get like one system cycle if we're lucky.
So that was just huge for me. Those were, I think, the two biggest like announcements, not to be confused with the dumpster fires or the happening moments or anything like that. Those are the two that stuck out to me. Those are the two that made me like as a fanboy of both of those series. Obviously, Final Fantasy VII was like the game that like I feel like got me into games, and like Zelda is my favorite franchise. So to me, those were the two biggest announcements of the year. Like if I had to pick like maybe something that I wasn't a fanboy of that was like just like an oh my god huge announcement. Because we already knew the Cyberpunk release date, right? Did we?
I mean,
Prior
we
to
learned
being
it this
announced?
year, but
I guess like yeah, the Cyberpunk release date, that was a pretty big thing because they brought like Keanu Reeves out on stage and all that stuff. But I mean, that's all I can think of. What about you guys?
So I had Breath of the Wild 2 as well, because that was kind of, like you said, that was, I think, part of what made that so special was just how few people had even thought that was like a possibility. A lot of these announcements are games that you kind of hear rumblings about for 6 months to a year before you even hear the official announcement. But I didn't really hear anything about like, oh, they're making a new Breath of the Wild game. It was a lot more like, oh, hey, they're making that Metroid Prime. Maybe they're going to make a Metroid Prime trilogy. Like
they had
just
mentioned
little things like that, but
simply
never
that they were just working on the next Zelda game.
Yeah. So it's kind of cool that they just kind of announced it like that. So on top of that, I was some other ones I was thinking was, of course, already mentioned it. Diablo 4 is kind of a big announcement. As a fan of the like kind of Diablo games and just kind of wanting to give it another shot. And the last one I think came out in 2012, like a while back.
Oh my god, Diablo 3 came out in 2012?
yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Oh my god, I thought that was like a current gen game.
Well, they've made it. It's kind of like Skyrim. They
Yeah,
just kept-
I mean, it came on
kept touching
PC
it
a
up,
lot. Yeah,
adding-
it was on PC a long time ago, and then they eventually ported it to PS4 and Xbox
Oh
and all
wow,
that stuff. So.
I had no idea it was that old.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to kind of jump into a new world. I want to see if they kind of make some interesting changes, because there was a lot of problems with that game, especially with the auction house and the way that items dropped. It was kind of super random and super, I don't want to say unfair, but it was like almost impossible to get the items that you wanted when it first released. And I know a lot of that stuff has been fixed, but still it'd be nice if they could start with all that stuff at the right place to begin with. Some other announcements that were pretty important were obviously the Xbox One system. Just the fact that we got like a look at what the new one, the Xbox Series X. Just the fact that we got a look at it, even if it doesn't.
We all knew that was coming though. Eventually,
Yeah, we knew it was coming, but
we didn't expect to see
at the Game
the
Awards
actual system
that was something
that early.
I was
like a big
expecting
Duke.
like
It is
Q1
weird.
at the earliest we would figure like they typically in the typical fashion they would just have like a an hour long or 2 hour long like have the big honchos come up and release the game, the system, maybe the price and things like that, and do it all at once. But just to have it like the year before at like a Game Awards is kind of interesting, and also the fact that the system looks kind of so different than anything we've seen before. It's not just like a rectangle that you put on your entertainment
it is just a
system.
rectangle. It's
Well, it's
just
like a tall
misshapen
cube.
one.
Yeah, I guess.
Bulky box. Well, they nailed the
not
box
thin.
part.
Yeah, and then the last one I was going to mention was just kind of maybe more of an honorable mention, but just the first PS4 game, Godfall, looked really interesting to me. PS5 game, sorry. That got also announced at the Game Awards. So just just again,
What's that game called?
Godfall.
Godfall.
Just the fact that we're
It's
really
a looter hack and slash.
Yep. Which again,
my
like,
two favorite things.
I don't really love hack and slashes, but I love kind of looter shooter games. So I'm kind of interested to see if this'll work. Like how many different melee weapons with different attributes can you make in a game where the loot system would be interesting. But again, they've revealed so much that it's just kind of a lot of stuff we'll have to learn. Hopefully by E3 of next year. Dan, did you have any?
Yeah. So for biggest announcement, my favorite is also different from what I know should be probably considered the biggest announcement.
All right.
My favorite was Resident Evil 3 finally officially being announced. Along with a date that is very early that I thought it would take them a long time to do.
Yeah, that was quick. It's coming out in a few months.
That was the biggest shock that I was like, oh, neat, it's a real thing. That's why with Zelda Breath of the Wild, that's neat. But when something doesn't have a date and it's just like an announcement, I feel like, all right, that's just telling that they're working on it. I mean, Final Fantasy 15 was announced like years before, and then nothing happened.
Final Fantasy 13 Versus, and then who knew?
So but obviously I have to give it to the biggest announcement and shock for me, which was an actual release date for Final Fantasy 7. And now that they're actually sticking to it, it doesn't seem real that they're gonna do that. Like, all right, there's gonna be something.
Yeah, I still feel like they're gonna announce like, oh, we're delaying it till whatever we want to.
It's kind of like one of those like Half-Life things. Like, it's just never gonna happen, and it's like, all right, what's gonna screw up now? But when it actually got a release date, and it was pretty soon. It wasn't like, hey, we're working on this, and kind of like Final Fantasy 15 again, and everything with Square Enix takes years. So. Granted, it's not the full game, but
yeah, it's the thing. I feel like that's why they were able to get it out.
But even then, it could feel like a
mid-gar.
full game. They could make it like. I just hope it's not like continued in blah, like.
Well, I think it's going to be both of those things. I think it's going to be a full-fledged game and also have that kind of because we all know that there's more.
Well, yeah, but I mean, games like God of War 2 ended like what the hell, like in the middle of like a fight, pretty much, and literally he was like getting back to the fight, and it was like. God of War 3, 10 years. Like, what the hell?
I think that Final Fantasy 7, to me, that being release date was also a huge deal because you remember they had to, like, restart production on it.
Yeah, so it wasn't expected. And to finally have it, release, that was easily, like I said, as I love Final Fantasy 7, but I obviously like Resident Evil better. But I know, obviously, this, and when it comes to the gaming community, this was a bigger announcement by far. Because this is kind of one of those things that it's like, oh, it might not happen. It may happen. We'll see. Resident Evil 2 Remake just came out last year. So it's like they have the capability. They put it out. It sold well. It's going to happen. But it was just, I think the Resident Evil 3 one just shocked me so much that it was so quick. It's April. It's, it's almost here kind of in a way. So it was.
The quick turnaround was pretty remarkable.
And I love it. I mean. I'm like I said, I'm super excited for that one. So
yeah, I'm assuming they must have like had it greenlit before 2 was even like released, so they would probably been working on it for
had like pre-production
a while.
done.
We do it. No,
they're probably using the same engine or something, or whatever from RE2.
Well, that's the great thing is RE7's like engine. They've been using that for the last 2 games, and I'm pretty sure they're going to do it.
Oh, so they use that. So it has the same feel as
it feels and looks like the RE7 engine.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So they've been just using that.
And just part of the announcement that they announced that Project Resistance was going to be kind of part of it. Which
that was
really
awesome.
Cool.
That's
that was
just like I think that's going to be a fun multiplayer. Like I wasn't going to buy it separately, but now that it's part of it, I'm going to give it a go. So gentlemen, what do we think biggest moment was?
Biggest game announcement.
Biggest
game
announcement. Or biggest announcement.
So I'm leaning towards
Final Fantasy 7.
I'm leaning towards this might be disagreeing with you guys as the Breath of the Wild 2 announcement, just because I guess.
So you guys are both picking the only 2 I had, and now I'm gonna have to pick which one was bigger.
Yes.
I mean, if you said it first, then you would have.
Can I give an anecdote first?
Yeah, sure.
So now that she's gone officially, my girlfriend has left the building. I can say this. So
you confirmed this?
Yes, I texted. So I played the long con here with Christmas. So remember this past episode I mentioned that my Switch broke?
Yeah.
I lost a lot of data. I had to get it back, and she lost all of her save files. That was false. I've been playing the long haul on surprising her with a Switch for Christmas with her save files already loaded on it because I already transferred the data over.
High five.
So she won't. This won't come out until she's already opened it. So that was like the big thing. I even like threw shade. Like I brought her to like the Microsoft store to have her like look at tablets and stuff like that. 'Cause she has no idea she's getting it.
Nice.
That's
So-
awesome. Can you record it?
Record what?
Her getting the Switch?
She might have some idea that she's getting it, but I've been trying my best to like throw her off the trail.
Okay.
Like I thought the Switch like losing the save files. I don't know. I was hoping that it would kind of throw her off trail. I wasn't sure, but
Yeah.
I just thought that was really cool. Wanted to mention that on the podcast because on the podcast last week, I literally only did that because I know she listens to the podcast, and I'm like, oh, that'll like
Hi, Ashley.
amplify that.
Wait a minute. If she listens to the
This one's coming out after she gets the present.
okay, good. Okay. Got it.
Oh, I thought this through. But anyways, going back to the decision, Matt, you're gonna go with Breath of the Wild.
Yeah,
2
I mean,
announcement.
again, like I'm more excited about Resident Evil 3 Final Fantasy 7 than I am and Resident Evil 3 to be honest.
Yeah,
than I
yeah,
am Breath of
yeah.
the Wild. I'm not a big Zelda fan. Like I know you're kind of the big Zelda guy. It's not my kind of my favorite. I do enjoy those games.
And that's not necessarily what these awards are about, because I mean, if we were only paying attention to our favorite things, like for instance, I've said this many times, Final Fantasy VII is my favorite game. I do not consider it the best game ever made. It's just
Yeah.
my favorite game, you know.
What I would say is I know we've been hearing about Final Fantasy VII remake for I think was it 2015 at the E3 they announced that official trailer, and there's been kind of drips and drabs of new information and new trailers. So we've kind of been knowing that the PS4 is closing out next year. It's pretty much has to either come out at some point next year or they're gonna have to push it back to PS5, which was always a possibility. But I don't know. It didn't seem like a huge surprise as far as like Breath of the Wild 2, where I was like, oh, I didn't really have an idea that they were gonna come out with that. That it was gonna come
Yeah.
out soon. That it was gonna be kind of a sequel to this. They've already kind of gone in a different direction, and now they're kind of going to kind of build on that, which is interesting. Opens up a lot of questions about are they going to use the same map? Is it going to be like, a World Destroyed where it's the same map but everything's a little bit different?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of things that like were big announcements this year that could just be assumed like we knew what were coming out. Like Dan mentioned Resident Evil 3 to me before I had seen the direct, and I'm like, I thought that got announced like weeks ago because like we'd gotten all those leaks of like the art and
Yeah.
stuff like
Well,
that.
that's why I was mentioning, the date.
Yeah,
was really
No,
well-
and which is huge because
Yeah.
like we knew Final Fantasy VII Remake was eventually going to come out, even though Matt all year kept saying like, I don't know if this is actually coming out or not.
Well, we had a discussion that was like, I don't think this is
Diablo 4 was the same thing. Like a few weeks before they actually announced it, kind of got leaked that was pretty much happening. Final Fantasy VII Remake, that was huge for me just because that just seeing that release date was just like, oh my god, it is happening. But like Matt said, I never had any doubt. I was always constantly looking up. Like once every few weeks, I would look up to see if there's any new information, and I was always just seeing these little tidbits of like the director saying like, we're still working on it, we're still pushing for it, and all this other stuff. Breath of the Wild 2, though, that was like a complete out of nowhere. Was not expecting it at all. Like Nintendo already won. Like that was like a weird E3 where like we got to the end of it and like it was Nintendo and one other studio that kind of won it at the end for me, and everything that came before that was just kind of crappy. I think it was Ubisoft, and this was before Ubisoft became a dumpster fire.
Yeah,
but,
before everything got pushed back.
that was like with their like whole Watch Dogs 2 and all this stuff. But like Nintendo, like
3.
just having like banger after banger after banger in that in their like little Nintendo Direct at E3, and then ending it with like, oh my god, they're actually making like a goddamn sequel to Breath of the Wild, and it's like, and we don't have enough information. Like Zelda has short hair. Is she gonna be a playable character? Is it gonna be the same map, or does it take place? What's going on? Like, I'm gonna have to agree with Matt on this one. I think Breath of the Wild 2
Hooray!
was definitely the bigger, even though obviously I'm more excited for Final Fantasy VII just because
Yes,
it's
kinda the
coming
same way, I
out in
feel.
March, and I'm getting the collector's edition.
Yeah, I have a hard time getting excited about like Dan was saying, games that are coming out in this vague future time that they don't mention, but it just seems like such a big
Like,
big
I kind of
game,
knew
big
they would.
surprise.
I felt like they were going to make it, and it was just kind of a broad announcement, like, "Hey, we're gonna work on this eventually." So it was just like, "Oh, that's neat."
You thought they were going to make a direct sequel to Breath of the Wild?
Yeah, just for how successful it was, they sold more copies than Switches.
But all the Zeldas are successful, and they never really do that. I feel like.
No, except Skyward Sword.
Yes, well, so
But that was just the era it came out in.
I just think it was they already have the map done. The game kind of.
I don't know. I feel like if I'd asked you a few weeks before Nintendo announced it, what you thought.
No, I thought they would do another open world type of game. They got
Well, yeah, that, but like a direct sequel in the same overworld. That's pretty rare for a Zelda game, you know. Like
it's rare, but I mean,
Majora's Mask didn't even have the same overworld, but that was like the last time. Like that was a direct sequel. If you can kind of count Phantom Hourglass if you want.
Yeah. No, I had a feeling that they would use the same type of maybe engine, but I mean that even makes more sense that they would use the same.
Oh, I knew that they were going to use the same engine.
Yeah, so at that point, I knew
they had mentioned like, oh, this is kind of the way we want to make Zelda games going forward. I think it was the idea that it was like literally a direct sequel, like it was DLC that became too big for what it was worth, and they literally made like we're continuing the story about past it, which is good because I thought the ending to that game kind of sucked.
Oh yeah, it absolutely did. So
I mean,
yeah.
So I was gonna say they're usually kind of tight-lipped with what games they make. I guess there's some counterexamples to this, especially with Metroid. But usually when they announce a game, that means they're pretty kind of into production with it, and they're gonna release it. Like this, I wouldn't be totally surprised if this came out at the holiday of next year to
compete with
systems. Like obviously there's like Metroid Prime 4, which they've been working on forever, but that was such an outlier that they actually had to announce that they restarted it. So that doesn't happen as often, I don't think, with Nintendo.
Probably why they don't announce things sooner is because like things like Metroid Prime 4 happens. Like who knows how many games that happened to that we just don't know about, you know?
Yep.
But yeah, all right. So official winner, Breath of the Wild 2 being announced at E3. So that's awesome. We got through that pretty okay.
Good for them. That's some good stuff to look forward to.
Yeah.
Well, it helps when it's an odd number. If it was 4, this is not going to work.
Why don't we move on to biggest dumpster fire of 2019? This is a fun one. I just like the fact that we have a biggest dumpster fire. There was a lot of them this year, I feel like more than normal. Dan, do you want to start off this one?
Yeah. Ghost Recon Breakpoint. You suck.
Okay.
Take off the offline.
All right.
Make it offline mode.
Hang on. Do you want to switch that to just that whole Ubisoft debacle that started with that game? Because I think that's bigger than just that game. That game set off like a chain reaction.
Well, yeah. So, but that one in general, because it sucks so much, everything
Which you
got
love.
it pushed back so many games
and got like some things canceled maybe.
Again, so I am so happy that you fucked up. And well, not only they fucked up so bad that they had to do a survey, and we already talked about this,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Preach it.
They
Preach it.
screwed it up, and everything else. Now, Watch Dogs got pushed back because of you.
That's a bummer.
So yeah, because I was very excited for like Team Grandma, like with friggin' Watchdog Legion or whatever. So yeah, so screw you guys.
I wonder how much of that was like that was also like the Final Fantasy VII remake week. Like that's such a bad week for a big game to come out. I feel like that's just kind of like let's just use this.
Oh, was
excuse
Watch
to get
Dogs 2 slated for that week?
Yeah,
that is a horrible week.
It was like 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, but
That's
it-
like
but-
releasing a movie alongside Avengers Endgame.
Yeah, but I do feel like Final Fantasy will reach past the just RPG and like regular gamer fans.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's gonna grasp like what Grand Theft Auto type of does.
That's true. That
So-
is two
but-
different kinds of games.
But I mean, it doesn't help. Like you get two people that like a gamer, like obviously they're gonna go with Final Fantasy VII remake.
Like it's not nearly as bad as Titanfall 2 being released on Battlefield.
No,
8
that just
by the same company.
That just cannibalized their own friggin' thing. Friggin' idiots. Anyway, the other one would be Bethesda and their wonderful Fallout 76 private server prices and issue. Where they decided,
yeah.
hey, we'll allow you to play by yourself, but guess what? You're gonna have to pay us $100 for the year because we suck.
Also, like the bag and
Just well,
canvas
Yeah, they
bag.
really like leaned into it. I feel like they kept falling into these errors, and then
yeah, they
they're
were
like,
like, what's the worst thing we can do?
Let's
All
just
right,
make it worse.
Hold my beer. I'm gonna go one step further.
needless to say, there was a lot of fallout from their controversies.
So yeah, I think Bethesda and Fallout 76, that game is just continues to take a plunge. So 2 games I'm happy that failed miserably because of their stupid design and online
Is the third
choice.
Is your next choice also going to be an online only game?
I
feel a theme
Sort
here.
of, but
Is
I
it
mean,
Anthem?
no,
Oh.
it's Blizzard and the
The
China
BlizzCon.
fiasco.
Oh yeah.
Where if they just kept their mouth shut and didn't cause a problem, they probably wouldn't have had a big issue. Instead, they had to go and take away that guy's money because he made an honest
ban him for a
comment,
year.
and he obviously doesn't speak for Blizzard, so what does it matter? So that was just them being like, oh my god, we got to be politically correct, like over the top, like we got to take this away, we got to take his money away.
Yeah.
So just an absolute unnecessary step that they took that totally bit them in the ass. So but out of all of them, I would say Ghost Recon because it had the biggest impact, because it impacted not only that game, which I have seen at $18.99 on sale already.
Yeah.
But it
When did
pushed
that come out?
back
October? September?
I think
end of October, I believe.
end of
End of
October.
October.
Yeah. And it was already down to
Oh, sorry,
$19.99.
beginning of October it was.
Yeah, so already down to $20.
That's unfortunate.
So because of that, like I said, it hurt so many games. It's hurt, like I said, Watch Dogs Legion. It's hurt
Gods and Monsters.
Yeah, Gods and Monsters, and
That
pushed
that
everything back.
Was it a new Rainbow Six game, or is this there was some
Probably
sort of
a DLC, I
there
think,
was some
for
like
it.
team based shooter that they pushed back as
Yeah,
well.
so many games got affected just because of their big giant screw up with this one. So my pick for this one is going to be Ghost Recon and Ubisoft's big screw up.
Cool
Matt?
wins. Yeah, so the two I had was the Blizzard Hong Kong.
Yeah.
thing. Just the fact that actually kind of went beyond the video gaming world to where you were seeing it on just kind of like regular, whenever a story gets beyond the video game world, where you're seeing it on just kind of regular news outlets, that stuff has really hit the fan at that point. And just the fact that they never really course corrected. They made that kind of half-hearted apology on like, what was it, like Friday night, like to kind of get it out of the news cycle, and they were like, oh, we'll give him his money back and we'll reduce it to 6 months, which is still like way too long of a an action. What I feel like they should have done is been like, all right, we're gonna we apologize, we did this wrong, we should have take it away completely, but then make the rules more clear, like just going forward you can't mention whatever they want to say, like you can't mention any sort of political or even. It's kind of weird because this one goes into the realm of human rights, so it's kind of different. But I feel like the rules about what you can say never felt like they were super clear.
Yeah, and he's not an employee. That's the other thing. He doesn't speak on behalf of Blizzard, so I thought that was the stupidest thing. If it was someone said on behalf of Blizzard, we do this, yeah, I can understand that he'd get in trouble, but he was speaking on behalf of himself. He was just happened to play on their platform.
Yeah.
So I thought that was just the stupidest thing.
And then,
you can go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, so they did that half-hearted apology, and then at BlizzCon, like right when BlizzCon started, the president came up and did his like zero apology that was just kind of really super lame. But it seems like it just kind of all went away because everyone was so hyped about Diablo 4 and Overwatch and all that other fun stuff that they announced. So that's just like, it seems like after BlizzCon, it just kind of the story died down completely after another week or so, which is kind of a shame. I'm not really sure what else you can really do about it. But yeah, that was a huge deal. Did you want to mention something else about that specifically?
No, I can wait until you're
Okay.
done with yours.
The other thing I was going to mention was just like the whole game and fiasco of Anthem. Just kind of this build up over the last few years of this, like, okay, they're going in this whole different direction into a multiplayer like loot based shooter, and then like it turns out like the first trailers that they had of it, the game was like not even into production at all. Really, all they had, like, people that were working on the game were learning about what it was as we were, and they just didn't have like
That's so
anything
bad.
done, and just like getting excited about this game and then playing it and realizing it's just this kind of, it feels like this alpha of a game where nothing's really done. There's nothing to do in the game except these like really rinse and repeat quest fetch like missions, which seems like it kind of this huge fall from grace for that developer, and just go from everyone being super pumped about it to just being like crapped on over and over, and just kind of this like string of we got it later with Breakpoint, just kind of these string of like promises that just were not kept this year, which is kind of a bummer. Yeah, that's all I had.
So I had you guys basically said everything that I was gonna say about mine, which that's very common. The only one I didn't think of that Dan mentioned was I forgot about the Fallout fiasco. I think it's because it happened around Anthem, so I kind of just forgot about it. But yeah, obviously Anthem, just because that was like a complete
Yeah, I
dumpster
was
fire
really
from the
excited for
get-go.
that. Like I played in the alpha and the beta and stuff, but
I
just,
wasn't. And I, again, I mentioned this recently with the whole Borderlands 3. I guess I'm just not into looter shooters when it comes down to it, especially like MMO looter shooters. So it's not a slight against the games, because Borderlands 3 I acknowledge is like a really good game. It's just not for me.
Yeah, I had so much fun with Destiny that I was hoping it would be somewhat similar to that, with maybe some more like a better, because that was one of the things that was a little weak in the Destiny games was the storyline. So I was like, oh man, if the storyline's a little better, that'd be
let's
awesome.
list out all the games that didn't learn from Destiny's mistakes. Anthem, and then Destiny 2. So so what I was going to mention about the Blizzard China fiasco. So here's an example of where if they had just done nothing bad would have happened. I don't think China was going to like ban Blizzard from being in China. So I had a bit of an anecdotal thing here, and unfortunately this goes outside of the realm of video games into the realm of sports, but I think it does very much coincide with it. I think this was around the time of like the Black Lives Matter thing, and ESPN had this basketball game that was going on. It was going to be one of the commentators, and it was an Asian man, and his last name was Lee. And ESPN, for absolutely no reason, pulled this guy from commentating because his last name was Lee, like General Lee. And it was like out of absolutely nowhere. No one was going to complain about that, and they just did it. They made a mountain out of a molehill, and that's what
classic PC
that's what Blizzard did here.
Culture, yeah.
Like Blizzard didn't really obviously this person was like kind of representing them as being a play. Like if they had just done nothing, like if they had said nothing, it would have just gone away after a week. And instead they decided to turn it into a big thing.
Yeah, it just made it worse.
However, that is not what I thought was the biggest dumpster fire of the year. The biggest dumpster fire of the year, I have to echo Dan here with the Ghost Recon Ubisoft thing. Not as much because I had this disdain for Ghost Recon, although I do understand why Dan does. Here's the thing. I think that was the biggest dumpster fire just because of the repercussions it had. Like, all right, so you have Fallout 76, which obviously was a dumpster fire, but it really only stretched as far as Fallout 76 itself, and then there was that hilarious thing at E3 where they basically hired people to cheer for them. But all their other games seem to be kind of on track. I'm sorry, Bethesda, on track. And then, obviously there was the Blizzard China thing, but, WoW Classic was still very successful. Diablo 4 seems like it's still getting positive traction being announced. Anthem, obviously, dumpster fire. But outside of that, EA, everything else with EA is perfectly fine. Ubisoft, like, this Ghost Recon failing rippled their company to the point where they pushed, like, everything back. There's stuff that may have gotten canceled because they were pushed back, quote unquote, indefinitely.
Yeah.
Like, not to mention, like, Division also saw poor sales, and, like, that just, like, worsened that situation.
Yeah, it was interesting because this whole story brought that kind of to light. I had assumed Division did really well.
Yeah.
I got it when it came out, and it reviewed really well. People seemed to really enjoy it. It was a blast to play, but I was kind of surprised to hear that, for whatever reason, they didn't hit the mark with what their projection for sales were.
Oh, Division 2?
Yeah.
And to me, it wasn't a dumpster fire in the sense where it was, like, a huge PR disaster, because it's not like all of a sudden people are, like, not buying Ubisoft games because of this, but it was a dumpster fire in the fact that it actually like affected their company so greatly that they had to like make all of those precautions, and who knows when things are coming out now, who knows what's going to happen in 2020 with them.
Yeah, it's strange because next year timing is so important. Like it's important every year, but I feel like next year it's even more important because
it's the console switch.
You got to get ahead. If you have games that you've been working on for 3 years or more for these current gen, and the new consoles are coming out at the end of the year, you want to get it kind of before we hear more announcements, like before E3, or at least before the new consoles are out, so that people are kind of still excited about playing your game. But I mean, if these games get pushed back again, like they can't come out after the new systems, or else they're just going to look like the previous generation level of quality. So it's just going to be kind of this catch-22 where I don't know, it just seems like a tough spot to be in.
So are you in agreement if we go with that?
I still think the BlizzCon one is a bigger game of the year. I feel like I'm not going to be able to convince both of you of that, but just because
that was a huge
but just
disaster.
like what you said, in a week it went away.
It did go
and
away,
it didn't hurt them. Like,
no, it wasn't a week. It took longer than
whatever
that.
it was,
After,
but
it was
it's
a week
forgotten.
after BlizzCon.
It didn't hurt them financially. They were able to make people forget just because of the announcements that they were able to make with Overwatch 2.
It was definitely messy. Like the Ubisoft one wasn't messy in the fact that like people were angry or anything like that. Like
people
were angry
People
at
were
the
very
game.
angry because, like I said,
They did have to put a survey out to fix the game.
Yeah.
And it goes like beyond just for the BlizzCon thing. It kind of goes beyond video games. It goes to like human rights and just kind of like
Which I do
freedom
think
of
is a big
speech,
deal.
Which
Yeah.
like people that didn't play video games heard about this, which I think is kind of huge. But again,
Yet
I guess,
again, Andy, it lays in your
Now,
lap.
well, hang on. We can continue to discuss this. So that's the thing, though. Like it's like neither company had both of these things. Like one had to like is in like financial ruin almost because of this game. I think that might be pushing it, but
I would say disarray.
disarray. They're in disarray, and the other one hurt their brand, which was already hurting. Activision Blizzard has been continuously hurting for a while. They lost Destiny too this year. So we could have Activision be the
Yeah.
dumpster fire because they lost Bungie. They had this China disaster.
yeah, Blizzard used to be like the gold standard. Now I feel
Yeah,
like it's kind of more
people
seed
are
product
leaving
red,
the
but-
company in
yeah.
like droves. So I think that's huge. And like, yeah, Matt, I agree with you that whole angle, like the human rights angle, like they got involved in politics and human rights, which is like that's like a big no.
That's terrifying. You don't.
You're
do
a
that.
game company. Just make games.
Make fun
Yeah.
games. Let them
and
happen.
support your gamers.
Players.
How about
Yep.
so? Dan, any other thing you like? Any? Are you sticking with your Ubisoft or any sway there?
I'm sticking with the Ubisoft because, like I said, I just feel like with Blizzard, they're no EA, they're no
They are smaller
They just end up like nothing tarnishes them fully because
Yeah.
their games are just so well done. People forget if they struggled with some games. I figured, but I mean, World of Warcraft. You have so many devoted players to these games that the company can just it slides off them a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I haven't heard anything about it. Whereas with Ubisoft, you see a lot of issues with their games, and there's no talk anymore of Watch Dogs 3 or
but-
Legion, but it's just very quiet. And like I said, that's
How many
nerve-wracking.
games got pushed back because of
I think
this?
it was 3 at least.
Well, it could be 2 or 3, yeah. Because also Beyond Good and Evil 2.
They basically said everything that we're making is being pushed back. But I guess my last thing would be this category is like biggest dumpster fire. Like, was that really a dumpster fire?
That's what I was thinking
like
just now.
Like dumpster, like getting this big backlash from kind of everyone in the gaming community, even people that don't play your specific games. Versus, okay, you've had like a really bad quarter where it's affecting, where you're gonna have to kind of go back to the drawing board on a lot of your games.
Nobody yeah, people were upset about Ghost Recon, but nobody hates Ubisoft as a company suddenly.
Yeah,
And
if
like it wasn't like
anything-
a PR disaster. It was just like a bad game, and they didn't.
Well, it's
they
not-
didn't decide to
And if anything,
have
you
common
kind of,
sense
you
when
kind of,
making
you
it.
kind of respect that they're like, all right, we got to fix this, and not just like trudging along and ignoring it or pretending that it did really well. They're like, we made some mistakes, we're gonna go back to the drawing board.
But they
and-
also did
Not to
piss-
mention Anthem. EA is still working. I just not that we were like considering that for the winner, but like EA is continuing like, no, we're working on this game. We don't know why, but we're gonna keep trying here.
keep going. Little
But,
engine that
Please
could.
like us again. Please clap.
Please clap. No, but I mean, dumpster fire could mean a bunch of things. It could be PR dumpster fire, or it could be company, dumpster fire with a game that hurts them financially. So it's really, it's your, this category is depending on what type of dumpster fire you're thinking of, whether it's financial or it's PR, or it could be a little bit of both. I think that financial hurts also the PR of this company because it's going to tarnish them later. Like, people are going to think of Ubisoft, oh, they've been pretty buggy, and this is another really buggy game, so this could hurt them long term. Whereas Blizzard, they're consistently making great games, and
So both of you are set in your decisions.
Yeah,
Yes.
it seems like this is another one that's going to
We
come
are-
down to Andy.
we're locked. So it's up to
I
you,
went
Andy.
into this pretty firm with Ubisoft. Unfortunately, in the past 5 minutes, Matt has swayed me because I was thinking of that. Like, I don't really think any ill of Ubisoft, and to Matt's credit, yeah, I do credit them. Like, yeah, it did kind of put them in disarray, but yeah, Blizzard, that was like, and not to mention, I mentioned Activision Blizzard, but like, I don't think people really think of Activision when they think of Blizzard. They think of Blizzard as their own entity still, even though a guy from Activision is in control. But like, most people don't know that. That was a dumpster fire.
Yeah,
that whole
it was a
situation.
mess.
To Dan's credit, it has gone away. No one's really thinking about it anymore. It did go away. Whereas, I feel like
I mean, no one's
Fallout
really talking about Ubisoft stuff
Ghost
that much
Recon
either.
thing.
That
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
went
yeah.
away too.
So I
It's still
do
in effect,
agree
but-
that the Blizzard China fiasco would be the biggest dumpster fire. Sorry, Dan.
That's all right. That's 2 against 1. That's what happens.
Honorable mention to the Ubisoft thing.
And Fallout. Yep. All right, Mr. Rhodes.
Can
what's next?
I throw an honorable mention in there? Because I think that happened this year, but it might have happened at the end of last year. I'm not good with dates. Metroid Prime 4 suddenly being shelved, and
I think that was the end of last
that
year.
the end of 2018?
Because I think it was the hope that they were going to announce it for the beginning of 2019.
Yeah, it does feel like that was a while ago.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought.
I'm almost surprised they haven't said anything else about it yet.
But
Like,
a
maybe
minor
one
little
recently
fire
this
for
year.
Nintendo is that they didn't do anything with Metroid Prime at the Game Awards.
Yeah.
And maybe Nintendo Direct if they
That
have
was
one
just,
at the
like,
end of the-
unfortunate.
I know. I'm talking a little. That's a little fire. Little fire. Just a little fire. All right. What is the next category?
Let's go best multiplayer experience.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Who's starting?
I'll start with this.
All right.
So I originally, hang on, I'm typing it out right now as we talk.
Of course.
For some reason, China autocorrected to machine. I don't know what my phone's doing.
I mean, they kind of do act like a machine, but
Dan, I'm gonna have to come out and ban you from this podcast for mentioning that. We're really huge in China.
damn it! I'm sorry.
Dan, could you please apologize, or we're gonna have to give you a 6 months
I'd like to
suspension?
give a half-hearted apology. Please apologize.
So for me, the best multiplayer experience, Call of Duty was good for the first month or so. Lately, I've been annoyed with it. It was nice going back to Halo. Not that that's like a new game that came out.
Well,
but,
they did Reach. Reach is new. So
But yeah.
okay.
For me, it was definitely Apex. I know Matt and I both dropped off. I mostly just quit because Matt quit, though. I was just a follower in that. But that was like, out of all of the battle royales that have come out and out of all the multiplayer games I've played, like, part of me still wants to go back and play more of that game, just because the combat was very tight. Just with most multiplayer games, one of the reasons I was glad Matt quit was because it takes a lot of time.
Yeah, it
out of
expected
you
way too
away
much. That was
from
like the
other
biggest problem I had
games.
with the game. It expected way too much of you. Especially you spend $10 on their battle pass, which like you're giving them money, but they're still make it this huge struggle to get to the end of the battle pass. Like if
Yeah.
you're gonna pay money, I get that you don't want to kind of give it away, but like make it so that I can play like a few games a week and get all the rewards. Not I got to play for 2 hours a day for
Yeah.
3 months straight. That's insane.
Yeah,
That's pretty much what you had to do.
But I totally loved every minute I was playing of the game. I thoroughly enjoyed it. The controls were very tight. It made me want to play like Titanfall 2 again. Respawn did a good job making that game that came out of nowhere, seemingly. A couple of honorable mentions. Obviously I said Call of Duty I was enjoying for a period of time. Also, I want to give one honorable mention to WoW Classic because, that was, I think, even though it wasn't for me, that was a big deal to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And, it made a lot of people happy, and it seems like they did a really good job with it. I haven't really heard anybody super complaining about it or anything like that. I mean, Matt's still playing it. I'm assuming it's still fun.
Yeah, it's great. That was actually one of my honorable mentions too. I don't think it should win just because it's like a 15. It's just really
It's just re-releasing an old
a
game.
15-year-old game. But they did a good job of kind of keeping everything the same and also.
I was actually thinking next year we should make maybe best remake a category.
I was thinking that, yeah, because there was a lot of good remakes this year too.
I mean, I think
Yeah.
Resident Evil 2 would automatically win this year. For me, it was Link's Awakening, but I mean, Resident Evil.
You also haven't played Resident Evil 2 though.
Exactly, but I like, so that's kind of hard to.
He will play it by the end of this year.
No, I will be playing it eventually. I don't have to play it by the end of the year now because we're doing this podcast now and it's too late. So
Don't give him any excuses.
I've been saying I want to play that game since it came out. I just haven't.
Good.
Now you got to play it before 3 comes out. at least.
I've really got. Oh,
Did
3,
you play the remake of
necessarily.
1?
Yeah, but I don't care about 3 really.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, I love
because
that.
I think it's because I never
3
played
was
it.
my favorite.
I never played 3. Was like the one I skipped over.
Oh, that was my favorite.
So-
I played
2 was
that
my
all the
favorite,
time.
but I'm excited to see because I did enjoy 3, but I'm excited to see what they do with it because it's
You
not going to
know-
be the same game, and they did.
Yeah,
so
they're
much with
changing
2.
a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
which I'm excited about.
If I play 2 and love it enough, I'll probably want to play 3. But like as of right now, just because I never really like had a huge like Resident Evil 1, I loved. Resident Evil 2, I remember playing and also enjoyed, but I didn't like as much as 1 because I like the puzzles more in 1. Where are we going with this? Best multiplayer experience.
Yes.
So yeah,
We just went to a single player game.
yeah.
Strictly single player.
Let's just go all over the place. But yeah, I'd have to give it to Apex for me. Dan?
So I had 3, but my number 1 would be Call of Duty. I think the fact that they did everything right. They had a bunch of maps, they had a ton of weapons, a ton of attachments that you can unlock, tons of camouflages, all this stuff. A great single player campaign as well on top of that, and tons of different multiplayer like modes, whether it's gunfight, gun game, deathmatch, hard point. They and then they're swapping
All
things
the
up.
other ones that neither of us play.
Yeah. But they have the option. They even had one that's called like Infection, which I thought was neat, where one person starts off with a knife and throwing knives, and every time they get a kill, they get people on their team. And
I didn't even know about that one.
And it's the last person standing, gets obviously the most points and whatever. But they're always constantly giving updates. They just added an old map from an old Call of Duty game, which I thought
That
was
map
really
sucks.
neat. I know it stinks, but it shows that they're going to add more to the game for free. You didn't have to pay anything.
Yeah.
But just day one Call of Duty Modern Warfare this year felt like it did way back when I was in college with Modern Warfare 2. Where it was it just felt like it took over, the gaming world, and a lot of people were playing it.
So just because you're bringing up Call of Duty, I do want to, just because I'm thinking of it. So if we did this podcast like maybe a month ago, I think Call of Duty for me would have been way closer. But I think like the last couple weeks of me playing, it just left such a bad taste in my mouth because it was really like
What's changed?
People figured out the maps, people figured out the camping spots. It was getting to the point of like not being fun. I think Hardpoint might change it a little, but I feel like shotguns are even more powerful in Hardpoint.
Yeah, but it depends on what game mode. So I started playing hardcore, which makes people.
Oh, that's what I meant. Hardcore.
So it makes it so that people are.
One bullet away from dying.
Yeah, they're one bullet away.
Like real life.
Yeah. So
we're all one bullet away from dying.
Absolutely.
But yeah, like it just left a bad taste in my mouth. Like it was inhibiting a lot of the things I didn't like about Call of Duty. But had we done it a month ago, like my initial reaction for that first, like when did it come out? October? November?
End of October, I believe.
Yeah, for that like first month, like I don't want to that go to the wayside. That I thoroughly enjoyed that multiplayer experience for that like first month. It was just towards the tail end where it's like
I think they need to bring back the tag one. What's the tag game where like when you get a kill, the person leaves dog tags? Kill confirmed.
Did they get rid of that?
Yeah, they removed it for a little bit.
Oh,
so I think because that makes people get out of hiding to go get the tags. So I think
not if you're camping in a building with a shotgun, because then you can pick up the tag immediately as soon as you kill them.
Well, that's true, but I mean, at that point, someone's got to get in that building.
Sorry, Dan. What's the rest of your list?
So, Call of Duty would be my nominee. My two, what's it called? Honorable mentions would be Death Stranding. I know it's technically not a multiplayer experience, but
I would call that a multiplayer experience.
Yeah, but again, that's why I didn't nominate it as number one. Because it was the help of other people, and like I said, the idea that someone put a ladder here feels like, oh wow, someone's playing this game just like I am. They're trying to sneak around this part of the mountain because they're lazy and they just want to go this way because that's the straight and narrow path, right? Exactly. So it's kind of neat to see like there's other people that play like me in a game that's very unique. Someone wants to go this way or whatever. So I thought that was kind of special. And then my third one would be what Andy said, Apex Lunch.
Apex Lunch?
Yeah, Apex Lunch. Launch, jackass.
Get me a plate of that Apex Lunch.
So it was neat. Unfortunately, I just can't stick to a battle royale long enough. I just feel like it's a waste of my time, unfortunately.
You did enjoy playing with
I did enjoy it, but I mean, just like with every battle royale, I get bored of it. Actually, a lot of multiplayer games, I get bored of it.
It's like me with the looter shooters. It's just not something that can hold my attention.
But I just feel like in battle royale, I end up spending way too much time just preparing, and then a fight happens and I'm just not ready, and then I've spent 20 minutes not doing anything, just prepping, and I die. So it's not my cup of tea, but I did I do know that it was like an important part for gaming, especially when it was trying to compete against like Fortnite for like battle royale, because nobody was doing it right. What's the other one? There's Fortnite, there's Apex, and there's
Forza.
PUBG. But they all just felt like PUBG and Fortnite just felt like almost like an add-on, or they just didn't feel good. And this was the first one that actually felt like, hey, when you're aiming at someone and actually friggin' hits them.
Yeah, this might be the first one that was built from the ground up as
Exactly.
a battle royale. The other
So-
ones were kind of like, they just changed another game into a battle royale.
Exactly.
Well,
So
PUBG started as a battle royale. That's all it was.
Yeah, it was
wasn't
just, but it was just
Did it?
clunky.
Yeah,
and
But it was the
maybe
first
just,
one.
Yeah, it was kind of so basic.
It was
Yeah.
it was so basic and it just was uncomfortable to play.
I would love to know the story behind the whole Fortnite thing and how they decided to do that, and like what was like.
As a fan of the original Fortnite game, it's all very annoying to me that they
Yes.
moved all of their resources to this
Yeah.
battle royale.
Did they
opposed to
just?
the game
Did they
itself.
just like? Is the original campaign type thing gone?
I don't think.
think
I
it's
think it's
free,
still
but
there.
Nobody even knows about it though. Like,
Yeah, it's.
If they made it offline, I would have played it. Like if it was just something that you could just, hey, I'm just gonna build my own
It was
world.
kind of fun. It
I
was.
mean, you played the campaign.
Yeah,
when
well,
it first
that's
came
what I
out.
was more excited
Which is weird
for.
because that was an online only game, wasn't it?
It
campaign.
was, but I wasn't 100% sure if you could build your own level and then keep it like it wasn't
Which you could.
connected. Yeah, but I didn't know if it was connected. I didn't want
No.
people connecting to it because I didn't want to lose it in case.
Yeah.
So, but I didn't like the fact that yes, later it was
Yeah.
you could lose it.
Just sorry, Matt. Just to circle back to me, I do want to throw out one more honorable mention. It's an honorable mention because it did not come out this year, but it came out like right at the tail end of 2018, and was still a lot of fun. Even though I don't really have anybody to play with ever, is Super Smash Brothers Ultimate,
Oh yeah.
which I was surprised to see even at the Game Awards because it came out last year. But I think that's just because of how it came out after the last Game Awards. I
Yeah,
think
because
that's why.
they air like the beginning of December. It
Yeah,
kind of came
but
out in December. So
Dan and I played that. I would still like to play it a little more. Some more Smash Brothers because we haven't played it in a while. But it's just unfortunate that it's like a party game, and it's not a party game that everybody likes to play. So it's not always something
yeah,
I
and
get a chance to play.
it's fun and they added all those characters, but it also feels like a little. I don't want to say stale, but it feels like it's just more Smash.
No, it
almost.
is
It's
just
like,
more Smash Brothers.
It's just a better version of what they've already been doing.
Which is why I just wanted to mention that
Yeah.
was a lot of fun I had earlier in the year playing. So Matt, you.
Cool. Yeah, so I'm going to start with Apex Legends was kind of my overall choice. Again, like I think for me, I'm someone that doesn't like, competitive multiplayer like against other people. Like I love playing with other people in co-op games, but not competitively against them. So for this game to kind of draw me in is kind of just kind of special in that regard. And just the fact that they had that kind of amazing stealth launch where there was this big important game that was going to be a kind of a big discussion point for pretty much the entire year. Most people didn't even know it was coming out. Like 2 days before it was coming out, it just kind of dropped. Like, hey, do you know there's this battle royale game from the people that made Titanfall that's
it
coming
was
out
out of
tomorrow?
nowhere.
I was like, what? It's like, oh sweet. So I just downloaded it and kind of blew me away, and how fun, how engaging the action is, and just the little the kind of improvements they've made to the formula, just the little simple things like being able to ping something that you want to like
Huge.
show.
That stuff was huge.
Yeah, that you want to be able to show like a partner there's something important, and just like being able to revive a player. So even when you die, like it kind of builds your camaraderie where you don't want to leave the game, and hopefully they'll come and save you, and they're kind of like risking their life to save you, and then you come back and you've got no weapons or anything, and you're kind of they're kind of helping you build back up, and it's like, oh man, you're kind of thankful that this guy saved you. It just kind of adds another layer to keep it exciting even after you're dead, which is cool. And just kind of the gameplay, the different guns, and everything they've added, I felt like was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Just how much getting a different modifier to your gun can improve things, and just kind of the drop of like legendary items or whatever they're called, the kind of gold ones that have all the attachments, how exciting it is to find one of those, because you only find those like 1 out of every 10 levels if you're lucky. And then just that feeling of getting kind of the top 3, or when it's just you and one other team in this tiny little circle. I mean, we all know how battle royales play, but I feel like, I don't know, it just felt like as someone that was their first big battle royale that I was playing, it was kind of special to me. Okay, so for other ones, I was going to say WoW Classic, which was just kind of an honorable mention that I don't think should really win based on its oldness.
Which you're still enjoying to this day.
Yes, Division 2, which is a more co-op game that I had a blast playing with. That was another game that came out earlier this year. I'm kind of surprised that it didn't do as well. But like just as far as like a looter shooter, the game, the world felt vibrant. Like it felt like just like getting all the different upgrades to your weapons was a blast. Just being able to play with other people. I think one of the downfalls is it kind of felt like matchmaking got a little difficult. Like if you wanted to play with someone on a specific mission, sometimes you would have to wait too long, or it was kind of unclear about how you would actually get a group together. So I feel like that was something that kind of kept me from being able to get super into it. Like they did have a clan system, but again, it was just kind of something where you're in a clan, but you don't see these people. There's no really way to easily talk or communicate with them. So I feel like the gameplay itself and the way it played was fantastic, but maybe just kind of the multiplayer trappings weren't implemented as well as like maybe a Destiny or something like that. And then the last one I wanted to mention was Call of Duty, which is a game I haven't played myself, but I've heard I've played. So I played Black Ops 4 and I enjoyed it, but I felt like it was kind of lacking in content. And then I know like the World War II one that came out was kind of not well received, but it seems like everything I hear about this is like this is kind of the best one that's been out in a long time, and it just seems to be getting a lot of people back into Call of Duty.
Sorry, I just randomly thought of a multiplayer experience I forgot to mention.
What's that?
Tetris 99.
Oh yeah,
Oh
that's a good
yeah,
one.
that was a
I have
good
to
one.
put that on there. That's a lot of fun.
That was a good
Did you
one.
ever end up playing that?
I play that like every week.
They made
Yeah, I
a
never played
physical
it.
version of that game too, out of nowhere, because they added so many different like modes now. Now it's not
I've just
yeah.
been playing just the regular one. Once a week if I'm bored, I'll be like, I want to play a round of Tetris 99 because I still have that online.
I've come.
That's fine.
Number 3 was the
I
highest.
got
I've ever
one.
gotten. You
once,
won?
just once.
It's so
every other
hard.
time. The closest I've gotten is like 4 or 5.
Half the time I'm like, oh, I know the tactic. Nope. Just get wiped out in the first like 5 minutes.
Also, a couple things I want to mention because Matt brought it up, and I think this actually should play a huge part in decision making. Is I want to give a lot of credit to Call of Duty for how they kind of handled things early on. They didn't really overdo it. Now, granted, you were paying $60 for the game, but they didn't overdo it with any like microtransactions or anything like that out of the gate. That was pretty huge for me. Is just like, hey, here's the game, here's the multiplayer. You can unlock everything in the multiplayer, and especially after the shit that happened with Black Ops 4, with like all the crap that happened with that. I know like they're starting to push the microtransactions now, but I don't think they've become very aggressive or anything like that.
Nope. They're still, you can earn everything. It just takes longer
Whereas
for you to do it.
Apex was granted a free game, but the way you had to buy things with them was very egregious.
Yeah, that's kind of why I fell off, because they were kind of so pretentious with
Yeah.
their model pricing, and then just the way they were acting on social media. That I felt somewhat disrespectful to the people that were playing the game.
But as far as like actually multiplayer experience, I still loved Apex more than Call of Duty. Even when I was playing Call of Duty for like the first week or two, like I was still loving Apex more. I played it for longer. Like part of me still wants to play it sometimes. So my vote goes to Apex. I feel bad. I feel like that's like the third one that we've beaten Dan out of. It's not engineered, Dan. To be fair, I went into this saying Ubisoft for biggest dumpster fire. Matt changed my mind. Blame her.
Right.
Oh,
See how it is.
it's gonna get worse from here.
Oh no, I'm gonna win one of these.
It's gonna get worse
I'm gonna win one.
when he starts telling me that Death Stranding should be Game of the Year. That's when I'm gonna have to.
Let's not get into that yet.
Oh, it's gonna happen.
Oh god.
Okay. We're gonna go on to. Let's see. Nope. Saving that for later. Do we want to let's really quickly. We don't have to make this a big thing, but this was originally a category, so I want to mention best indie title.
Sure.
And unfortunately, there's a lot of indie titles that I want to play that I just didn't get a chance to. But the two that I just mentioned were Untitled Goose Game and Cadence of Hyrule. Those are the two that I just mentioned.
Yeah, there's a lot of indie games. Like I want to try those. Another one is What the Golf looked really cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's another game that I haven't had a chance to play that looks interesting.
I want to play Creature in the Well. There was a couple other I written down. Dan, had we done that as a category, what was the one you were going to go with?
Outer
Greedfall.
Wilds too.
Greedfall. That's right.
Greedfall, hands down.
That reminds me. Wargroove was another indie game that I want to play because it's basically crap. What was that game for the Game Boy Advance with the tanks? War Tanks.
World of Tanks?
No, for the Game Boy Advance.
Oh,
The RTS one?
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about. I can't think of the name.
Crap. Advance Wars.
Yes, Advance Wars.
So War Groove was basically Advance Wars, except with like, a little less with the tanks and everything, and a little more like maybe like kind of like old school RPG, like I don't know what to call it, like Sword and Shield era type magic type thing. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that. I know we didn't do that as a category, but how about we move on to best console exclusive?
Sure.
All right. Who's leading the way?
Take it, Dan.
All right. Best console exclusive.
Oh, you know what? We started with you last time. Matt, why don't
All
we
right.
started with me last time?
Yeah.
So who are we starting?
I don't care.
Dan, you can go.
All right.
Talk about your dumb walking simulator game.
Oh, was that a console exclusive? Mm-hmm. Oh, I forgot.
Best
That was a
console exclusive should go to Death Stranding for the sheer uniqueness of that game, the story, and the amount of care and the lack of like bugs and issues in that game, and how massive the world is. That should be a hands down exclusive winner. Because it not only that, it just captured like everyone, even people that weren't that interested in it. Like Andy was not that interested in it, and yet he was kind of remotely interested in. Oh, I want to know the story. I want to play
acknowledge its triumphs. Despite its divisiveness among users.
So, but because, like I said, because the game was just so well made. Regardless of whether it was fun in certain people's idea or not.
Regardless of whether it was fun, it was the console.
No, but I
game
mean,
of the year.
fun is subjective. I found it fun and rewarding to take a package. You know, the one of them's a pizza delivery that you have to deliver across the map, and it has to be flat the whole time. You don't have to.
Can you imagine if the rain got on the pizza? How upset you would be!
Rain.
Like you're just waiting for someone to deliver this pizza across country, and then it's just like this old, gross, moldy thing.
Yep, you do have 30 minutes.
It's free.
or you get a sucky grade for it. But
I just want to interrupt the conversation really quick. I just want to say I want to give Dan a lot of credit for like not only doing the podcast but also working on the social media as we do the podcast. I'm serious. Like that's like
sorry, trying to just post some excitement.
I actually want to give you credit for that. That's like to me that's an awesome thing you're doing.
Anyway, yes.
So anyways, go on.
Like I said, I just the sheer fact that this game was just so well made, and again, going back to the subjective thing, some people find Dark Souls like it's a chore to play that game, and I find it extremely rewarding, and that's the reason why I play games is because of the challenge. I mean, that's why I've put Death Stranding on the hardest difficulty. That's why I put Star Wars on the hardest difficulty. I don't want a game that just holds my hand and then I'm going to beat, guaranteed. I want those games like Zelda where if I can't figure out the puzzle, I can't get past it. So I need to figure this out. I don't like the Far Cries where I literally can just go in and just throw grenades and blow everything up and I'm just going to win. Or it's going to save after like 7 enemies have died so that it makes it easy for me. This one, you can't get past it. You can't beat it. So, and that's the thing with Death Stranding, especially on this difficulty, you can't pass it unless, of course, you do it right. And there was a few moments that I had to think outside the box, some mental puzzles to figure out. And again, Hideo Kojima did throw another one of those crazy think outside the box, things to get past one part, which I thought was awesome. I immediately was like, oh, I'm a Kojima fan. I know exactly what he wants. So I was able to figure it out. But I like I said, I just think not only for the gameplay, but the story, the characters, and just the polish in that game was absolutely incredible.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah, go
Was
ahead.
Norman Reedus good in the game?
Yeah.
Because I saw him at the Game Awards, and he looked really awkward presenting that award. I'm like, oh my god, was he like a bad actor in that game? Because I don't really watch Walking Dead.
I don't know. He felt
he-
kind of like a generic protagonist, where like
See, I liked it because he was very distant from everyone. He has a problem with people like he has a personal space issue.
I want to clarify. I'm not saying Norman Reedus is a bad actor. I'm
No,
just
but
saying
in this
that
game, yeah.
he looks a little awkward at the Game Awards presenting the award. I'm like, oh, I wonder if he's not a bad actor.
It's a little
not a
awkward
good
that in the
actor.
cutscenes he does talk, but then like when he's delivering stuff, he doesn't say a word. Like people are like, "Hey, how you doing?" And he's just standing there, Like nothing. I understand that they probably didn't feel like
That's just a video game.
that's
thing,
just a video
yeah.
game, like, cliche kind of thing. But when he speaks, you understand why he's frustrated and why he's doing this. This is the only thing he's good at and the only thing he can do, pretty much, to help. So he's like, "This is what I'm gonna do."
Do you have any honorable mentions for console exclusive?
Yeah, so for the other console exclusive has to go to Link's Awakening. I am enjoying the heck out of that game. Woo! And it's also fun to see lots of the more I play it, the lots of like Easter eggs of Nintendo games that I'm seeing.
Was also in the original.
Yeah, but I mean, just for me, this is the first time that
It's really just a lot of random Mario shit.
Yeah, there was another game that I thought it was that I thought I saw the other day.
Oh,
that
really?
Was in it. Yeah, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But anyway, Link's Awakening just feels like another great Zelda game from like heavily based on the Super Nintendo like style, the bird's eye view of the Zelda. World.
And it came out right after the original came out.
Yeah.
After Link to the Past, which was that style, and it is nice that they go back and forth between the top downs, and even if it is a remake, back and forth between the top downs and like the
side scrolling and
not whatever Breath of the Wild was like.
I thought you meant in the actual.
No.
Link's Awakening.
The actual Zelda releases go back and forth between kind of the top downs, and then it's just nice. It's nice that. It's not just one flavor. I guess Mario does that a little bit too.
Yeah, no, it's a great idea, and I think they nailed it, and it screams like Zelda without even having Link in there. You can almost tell that it's a Zelda game, just because of the color palette, the art style. It's fantastic, the music, everything. And then the last one.
Like even if Link wasn't there, you could tell it was like a Zelda game.
If you took him out of that world and just saw the picture, a screenshot, like without Link, like right in the center, you could almost tell that it's a Zelda game.
Do you know what's funny? I think the exact opposite.
Really?
And here's why. It feels like the only Zelda game where like you could replace Link with anybody, and I wouldn't know it was a Zelda game because it doesn't have any of the other Zelda elements in there. Aside from like the weapons, but there's no Ganondorf, there's no actual Zelda. Spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't played this game. You haven't finished it yet, I guess.
No, I was actually hoping Ganon was in it, but that's fine.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dan.
That's fine.
I'm sorry.
It's all right.
No, it's like the only one that's like outside of the complete universe of like Zelda. So that's really funny that you say that. But I apologize. I forgot
fine.
you.
I mean, I kind of figured there wasn't Ganon because I didn't get that. But
anyways, was there any other honorable mentions?
Yes. The other honorable mention was way back at the beginning of the year. There was a wonderful motorcycle club game named Days Gone.
Was that console exclusive?
Yeah.
Yes.
How come I don't know these
PS4.
things are console
Yeah,
exclusives?
PlayStation.
Because you just play games on PS4.
That is true.
Both Death Stranding and Days Gone were console. I, for some reason, just completely forgot that both of those were console.
Yeah.
exclusives.
So I mean, there are not many moments where you feel, or in a video game that I felt overwhelmed by an enemy. Like you're like, oh yeah, there's a few enemies, I can just sit behind here, and the enemy's gonna be dumb, and they're not gonna come over here. But when you run into a horde, especially at the end of this game, and they are on you, you feel it. Like it is a unique feeling when a horde is attacking you. And then when they're on your nipping at your heels, you're like, oh shit. And of course, then you realize you parked the fucking bike the wrong way. And you're like, son of a bitch. So you can't just like pull away.
Another missed opportunity game for me that I still haven't played.
Was so it was a great experience, and the story like was really deep. I was shocked at how deep this game was, especially when the beginning was kind of rather irritating with Boozer. Just every 5 seconds calling you, checking in. It's like, dude, you're what, 30 and you're supposed to be in a biker gang? Like, why the hell are you checking up on me every 3 seconds? I get it. You're my buddy. Relax.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. Like the game kept opening up bigger and bigger. Like you think it's this small map, and then it just kind of gets bigger, and then you go down south, and there's this kind of map the size of the entire first part of the map. Like it's this really huge, almost overwhelmingly large open world, which is really cool. And it's just kind of the way they kind of drip it to you like over a certain amount of time, and then just Like you were saying, this is another game this game was on my list too for console exclusives. Just like how stressful it is when you have to find a horde, and you have to like beat it, and like there's sometimes where you're literally just running for like 5 minutes, like trying to circle it, trying to like get
that angle,
just get a couple more zombies here, a couple more zombies there, and like at any wrong turn, or if you like run out of stamina or anything, you'll just get clobbered by like thousands of zombies, and it's just you're always on edge.
Yes, so I thought that was an extremely unique feeling for a game. So, and I think they even though there was like mediocre reviews, they've also been giving a lot of like free content. Every DLC has been free for that game. And I do hope that they announce at some point later a Days Gone 2.
Yeah, they should. I mean, it sold well, but it was kind of strange because I really enjoyed it. I mean, obviously you really enjoyed it, but it seemed like it it got very mixed reviews. Like some people weren't very hot on it, but to me, it was one of the best games of the year, especially I mean, the more I look back on it this year, especially for console exclusives, it seems like there was kind of a weak year. Like last year we had God of War, Spider-Man, like all these AAA games, but a lot of the best games of this year I feel like were multi-platformer. But just to have this kind of like Sony exclusive that was just kind of really fun, just like really a kind of a different play on the kind of typical what would be like a Ubisoft kind of game where it's just a big open world but with zombies, but just to the fact that like the characters were actually cool and like I cared about what was going to happen to them in this game and just how it kind of added more and more every kind of chapter there was more to do. Which was really cool. So yeah, like you, I'm hoping there's some sort of sequel coming in the next couple of years.
It definitely needed one.
Yeah, and then also say, I was kind of joking before, but Death Stranding was actually my pick for best console exclusive.
Oh, you're giving me crap. All right.
And I think a lot of I pick on it a little, but a lot of the charm is just how unique, or like utterly unique
is this the first one you're talking about, or did you mention? I'm sorry.
I was talking about Days Gone, and now I'm talking about Death Stranding.
So did it just transition from him to you through Days Gone?
I guess so, yeah.
Okay.
Unless he
I wasn't paying attention because I didn't play Days Gone.
That's all I had. You should at some point.
You should.
But,
no. I do.
And I own it, so you can just borrow it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like Dan was saying, just like some of the funny moments, even just the fact that, there's a side quest with like Conan O'Brien and you're doing like silly stuff with him. Just the fact that you never know what's going to happen because Hideo is just so bizarre that like, oh yeah, you can find Conan O'Brien and he's going to tell you need to buy like an otter suit. You have to deliver him an otter suit because he's a big, like basically like a giant furry fan or whatever it ends up being.
I feel like I want to play the game just for that moment.
Yeah, it's
funny.
It's pretty great. Just him.
He is himself, and like your character doesn't laugh, like he doesn't find anything funny, so he throws a bunch of like really like quirky jokes out to you, and your character doesn't do anything. He's like, and then,
just like otter.
Yeah, and he's
stuff.
just no. It's really funny.
Yeah, I do think the game overstays its welcome. It feels like the main storyline is maybe 15 hours longer than it needs to be. It does get a little slow and repetitive, but again, just because it's so unique. And I also feel like I don't want to knock on it too much, but just like the weakness of the console exclusives this year, I didn't feel like there was a lot. I mean, we had this Days Gone, Gears 5, which I didn't get to play, which I think could be fun. I want to try that out, but there's really not as much as there was like last year, where I think this wouldn't be able to hold against a lot of those games. But
yeah.
What about you, Andy?
Okay, so not that it matters because it seems like both of you picked the same thing.
Well, you can still change our mind.
Well, all right. So here's the thing.
Point.
I went into this. I didn't do a lot of research on this one because I typed in console exclusives for the year, and the first one I saw, I'm like, oh my god, absolutely, because I know this isn't going to win Game of the Year. And it was the best console exclusive, and I had so much fun with it. Oh my god, Link's Awakening. So that was like, oh my god. But like, if I'm being realistic, I forgot that Death Stranding was a console exclusive, and Link's Awakening, amazing game. Probably one of the best games I played this year. I brought it on a plane trip and told myself like, oh, I bought the Goose. I went through Hell in a Handbag to get the Goose game, and I brought Octopath Traveler. Matt, I still have to get that back to you. And I brought Link's Awakening with me, and the whole plan was to play more of the other two, but then I ended up just playing Link's Awakening the entire week because I like could not stop playing. But honestly, even though my vote again doesn't really matter, I guess I agree. Death Stranding was probably the best console exclusive of the year. Again, this is coming from someone who didn't even play it, but like, it was a big game. It was a big game.
Yeah.
And personally, I probably think Link's Awakening is a better game, and I probably had more fun playing Link's Awakening. But I can understand Death Stranding winning that category, so I will just kind of concede at that point.
Yeah, and it's nice that Death Stranding is like completely new. Like I have no problem with remakes or updates winning like categories, but like Link's Awakening really is just that GameCube game, but looks a lot better.
Yeah,
so it's not like they really added any. It wasn't anything kind of new or
and that's why that was a similar thing I was going to bring up with that's why I didn't think it should be Game of the Year, and I'm like, oh, I can definitely get it in for this category, and I'm like, oh fuck, I forgot about Death Stranding. Oh my god, I even just accidentally wrote down Link's Awakening as the winner. Whoops.
Whoa. Well, I mean, it was on Dan. I guess you're not going to be able to commit. I was going to say it was on Dan's list, but I don't think he's going to switch from Death Stranding to.
I'm like I said, I'm conceding. I agree with both of you. I think Death Stranding should win console exclusive.
Yeah, I feel like it was by far the biggest impact. Like
I was just excited
because
I'm like,
this year too.
Why don't we move on to most disappointing game of the year?
Hooray! This will be
All
fun.
right, who's taking the cake?
I'll go first with this
All
one.
right.
As soon as I type it out.
I can't wait for Matt's. I'm excited. I want to see what Matt's disappointing.
I already know what yours is, Dan.
What?
Ghost Recon, probably.
No.
Oh, okay.
You never played Ghost Recon.
I never
right?
played it, so therefore
here's
I
all of
can't.
the ones. Oh,
Go ahead.
so we can only write down ones we played because I'm just saying in general these
you
were the
can play
most.
it.
So if you're excited, but then, well, man.
Okay, I got a lot written down here.
Okay.
I had like
Bring it
1,
on.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6 written down. These are all the ones that
wow.
I just thought of where either I was excited for it and like, oh god, it sucks, or it came out and there was like this, like, ooh, I wonder how it's. So I'm gonna. Here's just a few funny ones I wrote down. Labo VR, because you had to actually hold the Switch to your face the entire time.
Ugh.
Like it didn't even like hook on. Like you just had to hold it there and play with the Joy-Cons up to your face.
Oh god.
Oh yeah, it was bad, and I guess it was very disorienting for most people. Team Sonic Racing sucked. Harry
that was a
Potter
bummer.
Wizards Unite just took Pokemon Go and skinned it with Harry Potter people, so that was a little disappointing. This is personal for me. Earth Defense Force Iron Rain. Earth Defense Force was just a hilariously bad game.
Aren't those supposed to be bad?
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right,
they're
so
like
here's the
comically
thing.
bad, yeah.
The one for the 360 was comically bad, but it's almost like this one was self-aware that it was supposed to be comically bad and ended up just being bland and not fun because of that. Metro Exodus was disappointing because I was actually pretty excited to play that game, and I'm like, oh, this kind of sucks. But if I had to pick one, I would think the winner for this category would be Anthem, because that was like probably the biggest game that was like most disappointing. And like I said, I do give EA a little shred of credit for continuous saying like, no, we're gonna keep working on this to try to make it good. I don't know if it's ever gonna amount to
I don't know
anything.
if I believe them. Like we still haven't heard anything. Like what? The game's already going to be like
The
a year
plan
old.
got thrown out and everything like that. So that had to be like hugely disappointing to everybody who was excited about it. I was even someone who didn't really even think he was gonna like the game or play the game. I was even a little bit excited because I'm like, oh, like that's cool. You can fly around like Iron Man. How fun!
Yeah,
is
that's one of the most
that?
tragic parts. It has like a really solid, fun 30-second gameplay
Yeah,
loop that
so,
they
like,
just did not build on at all.
I think it says a lot that I didn't even play that game, and I think it's the most disappointing of the year. Matt, what about you?
So I had 3. That was one of mine. The other ones were Kingdom Hearts 3, which
Ooh,
is
That's a good one.
yeah, which is such a big disappointment because there's this long history of this game over the last like almost 20 years of playing these games. I had played through literally every game in this series and just kind of it kind
All
of
at once.
Yes, well, I played some of them before, and now I kind of I played all of them last year in preparation for this, and it was just kind of like interesting to see the different characters in the world build up over time, and it kind of started to go off the rails, but there was still like even in the newer games there was like a magic and like just like they were so sincere with their insanity that like you kind of went along with it and were like, all right, I don't understand what's happening, but it's still a lot of fun. And I just feel like with this game, they'd lost all of the magic. It was just like, okay, we're going to go to this world, and then you're going to play this for 2 hours, and then you're going to go to the next world.
Frozen's popular, right?
Yeah, and they like that exactly. They're like, oh, Frozen's popular. Let's have you go here. And like none of the worlds kind of had anything to do with the main storyline. And then the main storyline wasn't really sprinkled throughout the game at all. It was just like here's a plot point at the beginning, and then you're going to get all of the rest of it in the last 3 hours. And even then, like some of the best parts of those games was seeing all the different characters from the Final Fantasy worlds. And for whatever reason,
they
all
took it out.
all these
Oh my
people
God.
all these people that had been kind of semi going on this adventure with you over the last 20 years, they're just like, we're going to take these out.
Leon.
Yeah, we're gonna take them out. I don't know, because they want this to be like a Disney oriented
Wow.
game. They I don't know if they just don't trust that their audience cared about the Final Fantasy characters
Yeah.
or whatever. Which I guess maybe they got some backlash because it looks like the DLC is gonna have some.
I mean, when you have the hardcore Kingdom Heart fans disappointed with the game, like my girlfriend's like very hardcore, like that's her like favorite gaming franchise, or at least one of them, and she was like hugely disappointed with that game.
Yeah, and it's especially it's like for someone like me, I put in like maybe a couple 100 hours into these games, and then to not even be to get to the end where I was in like the last world, and I was like, I just don't have it in me to even finish this because I'm having such a bummer of a time. It just kind of like deflated this kind of, multi-year of expectations that I had for this thing. The other game I was going to say is Ghost Recon Breakpoint. I was someone that got into Wildlands late. I really enjoyed it, and I was excited to kind of get in at the ground floor of this this new Breakpoint game. But just after being disappointed with the alpha and the beta, and then just like hearing more about how just kind of piss poor the gameplay actually was, like how the kind of microtransactions in stores could let you basically buy literally anything in the game, and just how the kind of the hub world was strange. Just being able to play with other people seemed like it didn't work that great, and even the balancing with the early missions being kind of very difficult and kind of not really explaining what you're supposed to do very well, in my opinion. It just kind of was like a super disappointment, and then obviously I didn't end up getting it, and kind of this kind of ripple effect where like these other games that I'm looking forward to, like Watch Dogs 3, are now going to be delayed, and I don't know how that's going to affect them, but it was just kind of
the first Watch Dogs I was looking forward to
Yeah,
is now delayed.
it's a bummer because these are kind of the games that really appeal to me the most. Like I'm a big, co-op. Some of the best times I've had over the last few years was playing Destiny 2. I really enjoyed playing The Division, so I was kind of really excited that this would be kind of up my alley, and it seems like they really whiffed it completely.
Yeah.
But I would say if I had to pick between those three, my top would probably be Kingdom Hearts 3, just because it's such a disappointment over such a long period of time. It's just kind of out of nowhere. Just the fact that they couldn't finish this right after so many people had been waiting for so long is kind of amazing to me.
It's funny because critically it was reviewed pretty well and it sold very well. So that is really funny that ends up being your pick in the end. I forgot about Kingdom Hearts 3 as being like a disappointing game.
I kind of forgot that it came out this year.
It was very early. It was like, was it January or February?
It was early. I don't know. Maybe
it was February.
Sounds like feels like
Yeah, it feels like a February game.
Yeah, because I think it was Resident Evil and then Kingdom Hearts.
Get it? So. Kingdom Hearts probably came out on Valentine's Day.
It did not.
I would.
Dan?
So I just had two, and I just think with all of the fiasco that this game had and promise that this game had, because I was a fan of their previous games, I'm gonna have to say Anthem.
Oh yeah, because you're a huge BioWare fan too.
So
I didn't even think of that
as a Dragon Age fan, as a Mass Effect fan, I was excited for this game. I thought it was going to be, a great single player experience, and then on top of that, they just announced that it was an MMO, which killed me, and then they announced it was online always, even though you can't play it single player. So
see, those things excited me, and they still let me down.
Well, that's the thing. I just want to play it by myself. If you can take a group in, if you want to hop in, and have friends to pop in, sure. But I want to be able to do it by myself. I don't want people in my game. And then on top of that, I guess, from what I heard and what I saw is just a lot of lackluster, boring, repetitive grind, to do anything.
Then wasn't there that like one hard part you could get to and that was like really hard to get past or something like that?
Yes, there was I mean, I wouldn't say hard. It's more as like frustrating. There was like a temple quest where you had to. It was basically this giant fetch quest that you got halfway through the game, where it's like, all right, you have to open these 4 temples. To do them, you have to get like each of the temples has like 4 distinct kind of things that you have to do, and they're just stupid. Like, open 10 chests, kill X amount of guys here, and just like some of them were so tedious that it was like, all right, here's like an 8-hour just wall of just nonsense that you have to just tediously do.
Yeah.
That's where I stopped playing.
And then I heard the Angry Joe did a whole video about it and gave a lot of information. And it was he'd been playing for so many hours. I think it was like 60 something hours, and he barely had enough money for like one gun or something like that. It was just a giant grind fest. At least with Ubisoft games, they'll give you items. They'll give you a plethora of items, but they're not great items. They're just good. They're well designed, but then they'll have like the special items are like the only way you can get it is through actual money. But this game seems like you just have to spend a ton of time and grind just to get anything. And like I said, it was just a huge bummer for me. And then
just because we're talking about it, it's really funny. I'm wondering if I'm gonna feel even more disappointed, especially after my recent purchase, because I got the Xbox One, I recently purchased Mass Effect 2 and 3, and I plan on finally playing through the trilogy. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering if I'm gonna feel even more disappointed, like, oh, now I like really love BioWare, and they've fallen so far.
They do have Dragon Age 4, so
yeah. I never really played any of the Dragon Ages. I'm not really interested in playing the Dragon Ages.
Oh, Inquisition was so good, though.
Which I've heard.
It's more team oriented. Yeah. You can switch between the 4. Anyway.
Yeah, what was the other one?
The other one was Metro Exodus. I was excited for kind of a horror slash like shooter type of thing. It's survival, like horror sort of, but it's not really horrific. It's just more of like a very depressing, like Russia. And it oh my god, the first, I got it day one and I played it and it was just so clunky and something didn't feel right.
The silent narrative didn't feel right.
No, it just...
I'm sorry, silent protagonist didn't feel right.
It didn't play well at all. And then finally when you get in this open area, you're still extremely limited in where you can go, and on top of that, they barely give you any ammunition. And I wasn't playing on the hardest difficulty because that type of game is very difficult. And I felt like I was playing very conservatively, and I'm usually good at those games where I can, survive with barely anything. And I still was just getting my ass kicked. There's like stupid, like howling, like dog things, and they kept like running up and like biting me and killing me. And I'm like, well, all right, this is just really frustrating and dumb. And they also had this weird hiccup that every now and then, whatever you're stepping on, it might be like a rock or something, but your character felt like he was slogging through things. Like you'd be running at full speed, but then he would stop to walk over a rock, and then he would run and then stop, and it was just an absolute, mess. So I don't know if I've been sort of almost convinced to rebuy it for Xbox to see maybe if it runs better on the Xbox One. And
none of the issues I have were performance.
Well, mine was all performance for me. It was so frustrating because, in that type of game, if you're missing because of lag or something, or you're odd stepping everywhere, that's going to frustrate you in a survival game like that. If you're missing a Call of Duty and it's a little off, whatever, you're still, you have 700 bullets, you're fine. This one, no, you need everything, and you can't miss anything. So, those were my two big, disappointing games for 2019.
I am surprised neither of you mentioned, just because I know both of you played it, was Far Cry New Dawn.
New Dawn was good.
That not disappointing enough to really make it the list?
See, I thought
it was fine. I had fun with it. It was just kind of short.
Also, Crackdown 3.
Crackdown 3, like, for a game, it was fun. Like, to do...
Did you not have, like, high enough expectations for it where it wasn't, disappointing enough?
It's like Saints Row. I didn't expect a serious game. I just wanted to jump around and blow shit up. So it accomplished that. So that's what I was looking for. And same thing with Far Cry New Dawn. It was just like, oh, I'm going to be able to go out and play something and customize my gun the way I want. And yeah, the game, the story was terrible. And after a while, the gameplay mechanics in most Ubisoft games gets boring. But that's kind of what I expected, especially when the price wasn't $60. I think it was like $40 to start. It was like Far Cry, a 1.5. It just was a continuation.
One other one I want to mention, it wasn't disappointing in the sense that the game was bad, but it was more internally disappointing because I got this game and I really wanted to like it and I wanted to be in the happening, but it just turns out I don't like the type of game as Borderlands 3. Yeah. But that's not against the game.
No, it's where you set the expectations.
I am disappointed that I didn't like the game because I really wanted to, and it wasn't the game's fault I didn't like it. It was just I couldn't get into it. That's just kind of how it was. Kind of with that's what happened with God of War.
Yeah,
that came out last year. Although God of War, I still want to go back and finish. I think because I like the cinematics enough in that game where I think it's worth it. Like when that big serpent came out of the ocean. But yeah, for me, Anthem I think is the most disappointing.
Yeah, I would have to agree that I was, as a BioWare
Are you willing
fan,
to concede to that?
Yeah, I mean, my answer is still Kingdom Hearts 3 just because of the kind of long.
And neither Dan nor I bothered to play through all of the Kingdom Hearts games right before
I know, you
it
kind of
came
killed.
out.
I was like, I'm going to continue, and you're like, Kingdom Hearts 3 was terrible, and I'm like, no.
Also, I think
Anthem was my strong
I don't
second
think
choice.
everybody thought Kingdom Hearts 3 was disappointing either. Like everybody thought Anthem was disappointing.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I thought it was kind of awful, but I think it, like you said, it did get okay reviews. So, I mean, Anthem is kind of universally accepted as kind of trash.
Garbage.
Okay, so we only have 2 more categories left, it looks like.
We have
Let's
best
do this.
indie well, we have best indie title. I don't know if we.
No, we kind of already have covered that.
Okay, so we have covered that. What was the winner on that one?
There wasn't a winner. It was
Oh,
an honorable mention.
was
That's not a real category anymore.
Okay, that was just a fun one. So we have.
We did Late to the Game. We did. Hang on.
We did most disappointing, biggest dumpster fire, most happening moment, late to the game, biggest announcement, best multiplayer experience, best console exclusive. We talked through best indie title, and we did missed opportunity.
Yeah, we only have Game of the Year and Game of the Decade left.
Correct.
So which one do we want to do first? Should we start with Game of the Decade and then move on to the actual Game of the Year?
I think we should do year first. That makes sense. 'Cause
year and then decade.
decade
So,
would include Game of the Year as a possible.
Do you want to take us off, Dan?
no, I'm gonna go second. Go ahead, Matt.
Fair enough.
I'm gonna be
I
competing against.
wonder what he's going to talk about.
What do you got, Matt?
Okay. Game of the Year. My choice for Game of the Year would be the Resident Evil 2 remake.
Oh, all right, all right.
That drum roll is going to sound pretty horrible on audio. I bet us just tapping.
You'll have to add in a drum roll, Andy.
Well, all right. If I'm adding in a drum roll, then I'm taking out whatever the hell.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know what I'm going to do.
We'll fix that in production.
Anyways, Resident Evil 2.
Correct. Yeah, I've played a lot of remakes and kind of updates of games over the year, but this kind of takes the cake as far as setting the standard for what a remake could be. Resident Evil 2 was one of those games that I loved playing as a kid, and they kind of took it's kind of like when they remake a game, they make it the way you remember it is. Because if you go back to those games, it's actually it's typically a kind of a rough experience. But for them to make a game like, oh yeah, this is exactly how I remember it, because they're kind of taking the things that worked best in that old style and bringing it into like into all the new tools that they have. It's just kind of like this. It ends up being this super special thing, and just the fact that it has like 4 separate gameplays, ways, storylines that you can play through, and just like all the different like going through it, trying to do all the puzzles and figure out where you're going to go, and it just feels like you're trapped in this crazy mansion police department for as long as you are. It's just I don't know. I don't know what else to say about it except that I had a blast playing it. I know a lot of people have played it, so there's not much to say except that.
And you beat it 4 times.
I beat it
4 different times, right?
I beat it. I might have beaten it 4 times.
I beat it
a few times, and then I beat
At the very least.
Yeah, and it's not 4 times the same thing. You play
playing
as
with
one
different
character, then you just
characters.
play as another, and then it flips, and you play a different order, and there's different cutscenes depending on who you play as first and second.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different replayability there, and then after you beat the game, you also have like you can play it. There's like a smaller mode you play as like kind of one of the officers from the team that comes in, and you can even like there's some kind of funny quirks to it, like you can play as a giant piece of tofu. With just a knife, and you try to get through this like 10-minute zombie sequence, which is really cool too.
That's the noise I imagine the tofu making going through the world like.
Doesn't he squeak?
Yeah, he squeaks. He actually sounds somewhat adorable, which is kind of funny. Yeah, I was just kind of not expecting this to be as good. I thought it was just going to be kind of like they're going to lift the paint and just make it look nicer.
And it the test of time because it came out so early in the year and it's still on your mind as like the best game you played this year.
It plays amazingly. Like it made me super excited for what they would do with the third Resident Evil 3 remake. And I don't know, who knows if they're going to actually do like a 4 remake after that. That would be crazy to think because that's one of my favorite games too, but I don't know how they would make that better.
That's still very, very playable to today's standards. Resident Evil 4.
Sucks that they already remade Resident Evil 1 so many times with like different fashions, because I would love them to do that in this style, but I know I understand them not just considering how many, like they did like a recent kind of revamp of that game. I love that game. I don't really need them to remake it. It still holds up.
That one was great.
Any honorable mentions you want to throw out there?
Yeah, so that was my game of the year. Some other ones that I think were kind of in my top list was Apex Legends, which we already discussed. Borderlands 3, which I know you didn't enjoy as much, but that's kind of
I still acknowledge that it was a really good game.
Yeah, and like the DLC, just the first DLC, there's like a casino heist DLC that just came out. I just played through that and really enjoyed it. Some other games were The Division 2, Outer Worlds, and Days Gone. I feel like those were kind of my favorite list of games that came out this year.
Oh,
Andy?
so
Division 2 made the list.
Yeah, I had a blast playing Division 2. Like, it didn't have the legs that I was hoping it would have. I still haven't gone back and played some of the DLC that I think I bought in that season pass. But it was just really a ton of fun to play.
All right, Dan.
All right. I mean, I think we all know where I'm going with this one.
Death Stranding.
So, yes, The Stranding of Death.
What?
I am going to put out again as the game of the year. I think because it was, again, so unique. A lot of what I said from the best console exclusive kind of fits this category as well. It was well written, I thought. The gameplay, the mechanics were extremely unique. It did feel like its own type of genre in a way, where it wasn't just a typical run and gun like every other, game that comes out nowadays. It felt like, every moment that you were spending in the game was important, whether, you were delivering something or you were, you were picking up items that other people dropped in order to like complete their mission.
Matt is shaking his head quite furiously over here.
Or
a lot of shade being thrown.
Or finishing up a bridge that someone started but didn't complete. Or turning on your game console and then seeing that 7,000 likes have been given to you for an item that you put down.
Did you get 7,000 likes?
Yeah.
Did you see they added
7,000?
Yeah, in one day. Yeah.
Shit.
They added a bunch of Santa hats to a bunch of the characters for like the holidays.
Oh, did they? That's funny.
A bunch of what?
Santa hats.
Oh, I heard sand hats. I'm like, what the fuck is a sand? It would just like fall. It's sand, Matt. That's crazy. But Santa hat, no, that makes sense.
So, and just like I said, the sheer size and amount of items that they kept giving you in this game, and just like Matt mentioned with Days Gone, where they kind of slowly opened the map, where it was like the first piece of land you go on is pretty straightforward. It's just like a nice curved little road, and you follow that, and then that's basically that whole first area, and then the second one is just absolutely massive. And you keep thinking like, oh, this is the edge. Nope, this is the edge. Nope, this is and you just keep going and realize it is just absolutely massive. And towards the end, I was starting to try and 5-star a lot of these characters. So basically 5-starring it is like if you do enough missions for them and you get a high enough grade, they'll give you a 5-star, and they usually give you an item and like a little star that says, hey, you got 5 stars. But towards the end, I realized I just wanted to I wanted to find out what the story was. But it was just absolutely massive that I didn't even get to find everyone yet. There was still some people that I missed out on just because at the very very end, I was just like, oh, I want to know what the story is. I want to know what happens. And there's so much lore in that game too. Like if you don't mind reading like emails from these people that you save and bring them items, they're very thankful, and the writing is really impressive.
I've spent a good majority of my life purposely not reading as much as possible.
Yeah, didn't you feel like tedious after a while? You'd play for a while and be like, oh, I got 4 more emails I gotta read.
Yeah,
pretty long.
It depends on who it was. If it was one of the preppers, I didn't read it, but if it was one of the main characters, I did.
Just to cut in with that, I think that really depends on how enthralled you are with a game. Like, for instance, with Outer Worlds and Fallout 3, I spent a lot of time you go to the terminals and you get to like read all the things, because I think it kind of adds to the atmosphere, adds to the story. I don't know if the emails are kind of like that.
They do, and it's directly related to like one of them you bring. It's not a spoiler or anything. One of them you bring medication to a girl who's not doing well, and then you give it to her, and he's like, all right, I'll see what I can do. And then an email pops up, and it tells you what happens.
Oh, see, that's really neat.
Yeah, and he's just like, thanks to you and how well you or how fast you brought it, we were able to, she's in stable condition, and now with the connection to the network, we're able to try and find a cure for her disease, and there's a doctor that needs to get online so that he can help her like via his networked like tools and stuff like that, so he can like literally do surgery on her. So I was like, wow, this is just you really feel like you are connecting people throughout the game. And then obviously there's some people that are just frustrated with your company, and you understand why, and the idea is to try and convince them like, hey, I know you're frustrated, but in the end, you connecting and giving your knowledge to us is going to help the greater good. So it really feels like you're making a difference, and like I said, it's really unique. And I don't want to sound like a typical fanboy of Hideo Kojima, but I really feel like
you spent 6 months of the year really hating on the fanboys of Kojima, and then for 6 months you kind of sounded like one. It was pretty funny.
I don't care about him. Like I like the fact that he didn't do what he did in Metal Gear Solid 5 with throwing his name out there at every part that he could, like a game from Hideo.
Did he do that in this game?
Yeah, no, in this game, no. He did at the beginning, like, director or whatever, but he didn't do it at every mission like they did in friggin' Metal Gear Solid 5. So that was so annoying, and it was like, great, I know you're the director, but directors are supposed to be in the back humbly saying, all right, I think we did good. I don't know the director of half the other games I play because they don't put their name out there. And that's the way I want it to be. You're a team. It's your team who did it, not you. You might have thought of the story, but without your team, that game would have never been created. And so, again, Kojima Productions, I thank for making such a unique and interesting game.
So what were your honorable mentions, Dan?
My honorable mentions...
I think it's very obvious that you love Death Stranding.
I did. I very much loved it a lot. Resident Evil 2 Remake is definitely an honorable mention. I don't like to put remakes. This is one of the reasons why I didn't put Link's Awakening in there, is because...
Now, I said this last week, and both of you threw a lot of anger at me for saying, no, it's not just a remake. It's like a completely different game.
Yeah, I would say it is.
Well, it does feel like a completely different game, but the story and everything is based on something else. So it has to dock. I have to dock it a little bit because of that. But yes, it was an absolutely fantastic game that still kept its soul pretty much. It still felt like the old Resident Evil 2. When you walked in that room that says, welcome Leon, his first day to the police force, and you remember that same cop who's hurt, that you bump into. It still kept the nostalgic factor of the originals, and just like I said, just brought it to the 21st century, as far as like graphics and gameplay mechanics. So on top of that one would be Days Gone. I really enjoyed the combat of the game, the grittiness of it, the horde mechanic, where, like I said, it felt like it was
horde.
Yes, yeah, what Andy said. It just felt overwhelming, and not many enemies in games feel overwhelming. This game did a great job of doing that. And it also, like, the enemies that you fought, the marauders or the clan or whatever that sits in that game, when you were taking or shooting at them, you really, your character was like yelling at them, and it felt aggressive. Like, he wasn't just killing them just to, save the world. He was killing them because he hated them. So it really, your anger kind of flowed through the main character, and he reciprocated those feelings towards the enemies in this game. And then, last one would be Outer Worlds. Even though, unfortunately, I did not get to play a lot of it, I can see how, just from even the first hour and a half, 2 hours of dialogue, that the dialogue in this game is what really carries this game. And I understand now, playing Fallout 4, how Fallout 4's dialogue was extremely boring compared to this type of dialogue where it feels like every decision you make, it's rather important. I'm just getting to the beginning choice, and I'm torn. Like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, they all have an impact, and it's not just like good guy, bad guy.
Yeah, let's not talk too much about that.
No,
Andy's
no.
in the middle of playing it. And
No.
I don't want too much spoiled.
I'm literally at the beginning too, but I've already Matt already mentioned that there's a first decision that you have to make, and I'm pretty certain that this is the first decision.
I haven't even gotten to that yet.
Okay, but I'm not gonna say anything. But I already feel torn. Like I don't. One side of me is saying, "Oh, I want this because I think I could get this out of them," and this one's like, "I want to help these people because of X, Y, Z." So I'm already torn on the first one.
Yeah, I usually just want to play like the good guy in those games, but there is no, like,
there's
obvious
no
good guy
clear.
choice.
Yeah, Mass Effect had that problem where it was the obvious good, obvious bad, and then neutral. This one has. We'll tell you later.
Yeah. Even
just
Fallout
like
3 with that huge decision, it was obviously like you can kind of take the greedy bad decision with Megaton, or you can take the I'm gonna save the people. It was very black and white. So I am glad that this is great. It makes me excited.
It is. Like I said, I'm torn with the first one. So, but I would have to give it to Death Stranding for the game of the year.
This is gonna be rough.
Yeah?
This is gonna be rougher than you guys think. All right.
Your game of the year is...
I'm going to start out with my honorable mentions first.
Oh god, here we go.
So,
Wait a minute. Is it gonna be?
I had Death Stranding as an honorable mention just because of the uniqueness of the game. I don't think it comes anywhere close to Game of the Year just because of the divisiveness among people who actually played it. I RE2. I also had it as an honorable mention because I don't think remakes should be considered Game of the Year as much. And
It's not a remake, it's a remake.
And my favorite game I played this year is also an honorable mention. Like the game I enjoyed the most this year is an honorable mention. That's Link's Awakening because it's also a remake. Outer Worlds is also on there. The best game this year was A Plague Tale: Innocence.
I thought he was gonna say that.
What?
What do you mean?
That was a great game. Did you play it?
Yeah, I did. I played through it entirely.
Let me explain it.
It is a great game.
Let me explain.
That could be an indie game.
I thought
that could also be an indie game because that was a very small company who made that.
I didn't even think about that.
So
That
we'll give Plague Tale a hands down.
Here's the thing.
Best indie title.
Did they necessarily break the mold on gameplay? No, but neither did Last of Us. But Last of Us was like one of the best games that came out last decade. More on that later. So here's the thing with A Plague Tale. It was never boring. It had a gripping story, a different story. Like, yeah, it was kind of a horror-ish game, but you also had like the horror mixed in with those like bright spots and overtones. It was definitely like it harked to The Last of Us with how they did their story and gameplay, and also just like a different time period. It was France and the plague era.
Yeah,
I guess. I don't listen. I'm not good with history over here. I'm a science and math guy. So
it was medieval with knights and kings and
medieval France, Europe-ish thing, and just like the story just took hold of me. Like every time I thought that the game was going to start getting boring, because there were points where the gameplay got a bit repetitive, but then they would throw something at me, and like they would throw a puzzle at me or just like a story element at me where I'm like, oh my god, this game. And I felt it was the best game that came out this year. I really honestly believe that. And I was honestly, up until last night, I was going to be picking Outer Worlds, to be honest. But Outer Worlds, as amazing as it is, it does just feel like more of a spiritual successor to Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 3, which and I don't know if it's correct of me to throw as much shade. I'm telling you right now, I'm definitely not picking Death Stranding for Game of the Year.
Yay.
I'm definitely not picking RE2 for Game of the Year.
Man.
So I don't know how we're going to come to an agreement on this.
That's not going to work.
Yeah, this is going to be a problem.
Yeah, this is going to be an issue. I honestly got to believe A Plague Tale to be the best Game of the Year that came out.
Can I
None of us even mentioned Sekiro, which I thought was funny considering it was the actual Game of the Year for the Game of the Year awards.
See, I think Sekiro was just like a
good game.
Well, it was a great game, but it was still, I've already played it. Just like Star Wars, I've already played it. It's the same style of Star Wars, except the only change is how Bloodborne changed instead of blocking, you have to
Dodge.
attack. You have to dodge a lot. This one is instead of attacking a lot, it's
like time your
it's
parries
timing.
and attacks.
It's parrying.
Yeah.
That's it. So I felt like, and it's just a different palette. So it's a different skin. It's samurai.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Like I said, it's an awesome game. It's like a Tenchu type of game, but I feel like it's already been done before. And again, that's why Star Wars, I played it for probably like 6 hours, and it's awesome. But I've already played it. It's a copy paste of like a Dark Souls, or Sekiro, but it's just, it's already been done before. It's just a different skin. And the story, especially in Sekiro, is very,
I will admit that a lot of A Plague Tale could be considered a copy and skin of The Last of Us too,
I
but I
don't
think
think
there was
so.
enough different
I
elements
don't think
in
so
there.
because you felt underpowered in
Very much.
in Plague Tale. You were a 15 or 14-year-old
So you got
girl.
the rat powers.
Yeah.
At the
end. For spoilers for people.
Okay, we're talking about Game of the Year here. This game came out 6 months ago. As soon as, they should assume we're talking about spoilers here.
Okay. Well,
We all
anyway.
played the game at this table.
Yeah, we did, but the people listening, if you want to give it props. Anyway, all right.
I will make sure at the beginning of this episode to put a spoiler warning out.
That's a good idea.
I will re-record. All right, hang on. There. I just recorded a warning for everybody, and I'm going to put it at the beginning of the podcast. So, anyway, all right.
I wanted to ask you too. What's your thoughts on Control? Does that even get up there?
I could put it on my honor, but I don't know. I don't know about Game of the Year, but I'm enjoying it a lot. I don't know about Game of the Year yet. I think that would have to be until after I beat it. You didn't mention your honorable mentions.
No, it was a great game. It was just a great game.
Yeah, no, great game. So what are we doing here, boys?
I mean,
Death Stranding, it was really just the divisiveness among people who played it. Like, there were so many people where it's either like they loved it, and I think there was a lot of fanboys who loved it, or there's people like you who generally just love the game, but then there are also people who barely thought it was a game.
it was. I just like the challenge part of it, and it felt rewarding. I don't feel like there's a lot of games that don't feel rewarding. They just, at the end of the game, I feel like they're just gonna give it to you. Ubisoft tends to do that a lot, where you could just go through and you blow through it, and then and it's more time, it's a time thing rather than a difficulty thing. And that's with Death Stranding. If you want to get an S ranking for everything, you have to earn it. You have to be quick. You have to make the right decision.
I feel like Ubisoft games are bland just because you always know what they're gonna do.
Some of them are, but then every now and then they throw a loop where Watch Dogs 2. That game story was great, and
that's why Watch Dogs 3 pretty much excited me because it did look a little different from the old.
Anybody that hasn't played Watch Dogs 2, Watch Dogs 1 unfortunately was kind of the protagonist was pretty meh. He was like a sad Batman.
That was like an early PS4 release though.
Yeah.
It was kind of, they were just kind of getting a hold of the technology.
Yeah.
I feel like at that point.
And Watch Dogs 2 was great. You felt like a vigilante hacker group. But
we're getting off topic.
But yeah, no. So but I do like the fact, like I said, that games that give you a challenge that it's not just going to give it to you. And Death Stranding, I felt had that, as well as a massive open world with no.
Pat is very angry that you're even talking about it right now.
I didn't run into any bugs, any issues. Everything was well done. The acting.
Matt's most disappointing moment of the year is this moment right here.
Didn't you get bored of it though? It's the same thing over and over, and they just kind of. I feel like they drag stuff out over much longer time than they need to.
I didn't think so, especially when I was repeating areas over and over again to get 5 stars. And if I wanted to change the pace, I could have been like, all right, I'm going to go to the next area. But I always felt like they threw a challenge in there. So for the first area, there wasn't much of a challenge. There was one BT area that you could easily get through. And then the next area, it was mules. The mules started. Sorry, they're not actual animal mules. For the people listening, they're a title given to other porters or delivery maker people that would steal your stuff. They would try and knock you out and take your stuff.
Can I say one thing that I'm just thinking of right now? All right, let's say I did think that remakes qualified. I still wouldn't pick either of those games. I loved Link's Awakening, and I still wouldn't pick that as Game of the Year. even if remakes were included. I just want to point that out.
Oh, if remakes were included, then yes, I would go to Resident Evil 2 remake because it was so.
Remakes are included.
Okay, I didn't play Resident Evil 2. I acknowledge that it wasn't like, obviously from what everybody's told me, from what you guys have told me, from what I've seen online, it was an amazing game.
But they didn't just remake the old game. They added a lot of new stuff. Like every room was like a little bit different. Like every,
they added bathrooms.
The characters interacted differently with you. Like they had Mr. X was a much bigger part of the game. It wasn't just the same stuff you were doing in Resident Evil 2. Like it was a completely, like the cutscenes were different. Everything played differently.
Different voice
actors.
Menus were different.
Dan, if remakes were included, would you pick Resident Evil 2 over Death Stranding? Because I didn't make that rule. That was on my own personal thing. No. That was my personal preference. Because in my mind, and maybe it matters that I haven't played the new Resident Evil, because I played Link's Awakening, the remake, and I know that is almost a shot-for-shot remake of the game. Just it looks better and plays better because it's not on
which I think is
Game
kind of a very different thing when it's just a shot-for-shot remake, but looks better.
I admit,
this plays better.
I
is a
have
different
not
game.
played Resident Evil 2 remake, so I can't acknowledge that enough. So my personal preference was I don't think remakes should be included just because it's not a new idea. That was my mentality behind it, but
like
that was just for me. I didn't say you guys had to do
Borderlands
that. That was
3
just
is a
for
new
me.
game, but it's not a new idea. It's literally just the same thing as Borderlands 2. I mean, that's not going to be our game.
But
of the
Borderlands
year,
3 hadn't been made yet, though. Like it was new characters, new story.
Yeah, but I mean, it is a generic story. It's the same thing. It's always a random.
I'm just saying they literally took Resident Evil 2 and just remade it to be better. It's the same story. It's the same characters. Like, what did they change about the story and characters? Like, they already had a base.
I mean, are you saying FF7 Remake is ineligible for the 2020 awards for Game of the Year? Because that's the same game, but it's very different.
I don't know how much is going to be the same about that game yet, though.
That's the thing. The Resident Evil 2 game is like it's the same, but it's very different. They added stuff to it. It's not. It's just
I don't think I could even vote for that to be Game of the Year just because it's going to be like part 1 of a game.
I mean, all games.
I think Cyberpunk is going to end up being my
Metal Gear
favorite game
Solid 1
year.
is game. It could be Game of the Year, even though they had like 3 sequels. That's no different than sequels.
Dan, just for the sake of actually picking a game, it just sucks that I haven't played Resident Evil 2. That's what sucks about this.
We have been pushing that game.
I should have made a better point to play it, but I didn't, and that's my fault. So, Dan, would you be willing to buck over on Resident Evil 2 for the sake of actually picking a game?
Yes, I would.
I'm fine
could
with also
because of
agreeing with that, based on the fact of how much you two talk it up as being an amazing game, whereas Death Stranding only one of you liked.
Well, yeah. So again,
I liked it.
I
mean, it was my console game of the year, but it just wasn't. I didn't like it as much as Dan, and I don't think it hangs with Game of the Year. But
this game,
that's a personal
as
opinion
much
thing.
as it wasn't, as Resident Evil 2 wasn't a new quote unquote idea, you can remaster something and it still sucks. I mean, I'm trying to think. Like Medieval came out and it was just. It didn't age well.
Yeah.
And they remastered it. It didn't.
It's just hard for me to wrap my head around the idea without actually playing it. And I'm fully admitting that. I'm fully admitting that is the reason I have that mentality.
It's just funny that our Game of the Year argument is more about like semantics of what our Game of the Year can be as opposed to the actual games themselves.
Okay. Let's just put the remake argument aside. Put that all aside, because like Dan said, you even consider the Jedi Fallen Order to be kind of just a remake of a Dark Souls type game,
Yes.
more or less a copy and paste. So let's put all that aside. Out of all the games that came out this year, what do you guys think is the best game that came out this year? Putting all of the semantics aside, because you're right, it is semantics, Matt. I agree.
Resident Evil 2 remake.
Well, yeah, obviously, Matt thinks that.
What are you taking? Take the semantics aside.
Putting the semantics aside, doesn't matter if it's a remake or a new idea, an old idea. So things like Medieval could be in the conversation.
I mean,
Link's Awakening.
We're gonna like. I would stick with Death Stranding, but I understand, and yes, Resident Evil 2.
Did you love Resident Evil 2 enough to...
Oh, absolutely. So yes, I could buckle. I could be convinced for playability, for nostalgia factor, for graphical like detail, for the survival horror part of it, I could easily say
And it is impactful because we're getting because of the success of this game, we're getting the third one, which seems to be
That's
hype.
true.
Capcom has been on a big upswing.
Capcom has been on a huge roll.
Yeah, ever since Monster World and Resident Evil 7.
Monster World was
Monster Hunter. Oh, that was
Monster Hunter World. That was no. When the original Monster Hunter World came out, that from that point to now, they've just been on a roll with the Mega Man 11.
Oh, Capcom in general, yeah.
Capcom in general, and then
Devil May Cry.
Devil May Cry 5 and all that stuff. So here's the thing. I did not consider things like Link's Awakening or Crash Team Racing, not that was even close anyways, to be in the running because they were simply just reskinned. That's it. That wasn't me saying all remakes should not be considered. I am just saying that if Resident Evil 2 was just a straight shot-for-shot remake. But from what you guys have said, it's a lot more than that. So I am willing to agree that can be Game of the Year, even though it doesn't matter because you guys agreed on it already. Anyways, I still think A Plague's Tale is the best game that's come out this year that I've played. But
Plague's Tale was fantastic, and why did I completely forget about that? That
I
should
didn't
easily win best indie title because that was made by a small group.
I
of people.
I didn't even think it was considered an indie title. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, it was made by a small group of a small team.
Whew, so we were able to get that out of the way. So
Here we go.
Now we just have to do the one that's 10 times as hard.
Game of the decade, which we're only going to do this once. We're not going to be doing this next year. So. This is a pretty big deal. This was me alone. This was really hard.
Yeah, I don't know. Should we just
do.
list them off and then kind of cut down what we think would be the top choices?
I got mine down to 6 choices.
I got 2.
Wow,
I have 8.
Yuck. Dan, you only have 2.
Yep.
So why don't you go ahead?
Well, do you want me to
right.
list mine first? Because maybe his 2 will be on my list. Or
Sure.
But I have 2, so there's less of a chance that it'll be all on your list. So I won't spoil everything.
Yeah, we can do it that way.
Okay.
Whatever.
So this game has made over $6 billion.
Grand Theft Auto 5.
Most profitable entertainment product ever made. And over 110 million copies have been sold. Grand Theft Auto 5. Hasn't even been made yet. Grand Theft Auto 5.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to steal your thunder by saying that.
This
I
game...
just like guessing what you're going to say. It's really fun for me.
Yeah, you're a dick. So Grand Theft Auto 5 was just, I feel like the pinnacle of a well-made game that went beyond if you're an RPG fan, if you're a shooter, fan, if you're whatever, no matter what, people just immediately go to Grand Theft Auto.
I played through that campaign 3 times.
Yes, and the characters in this game, none of them were in the old Grand Theft Autos. They had to rely on a famous voice actor or something.
I think Grand Theft Auto 4 was the first one not to have famous voice actors, but that game sucked.
Yeah, but unfortunately it just didn't work. But with this one, they picked 3 actors that weren't famous or anything. Just
the guy who played Trevor was basically Trevor in real life.
Yeah,
already,
he was
which is really
absolutely fantastic. And every time Trevor, was when you would spawn to him or something, sometimes he'd be in a dress, drunk in the middle of a mountain, or he'd be in the middle of a bar fight. Or
my favorite was still Scooter Buddies. He was on the scooter behind the other guy on the scooter.
So, but the sheer amount of detail that went into the world with no loading screens, from one end of the world to another, 0 loading screens. But how detailed and amazing, the cars looked, the weapons looked. You literally walk by someone, you can press a button to communicate with them, and each person had a different saying, a different voice actor. It was absolutely incredible. On top of the story being great. And then
not to be rude,
yeah,
but Game of the Decade is going to take a while, so I want to push Game.
All right,
move it along.
I'm sorry,
Dan.
Grand Theft
We're
Auto
sick
5
of
was an
hearing about
amazing
GTA
game.
5.
I'm sorry. I'm
We're
not
sick
trying to
of
be
hearing about your
rude.
game.
Just saying he has 8 games on his list. I have 6 on my list, so I just want to make
I'll
sure.
just go- I'll
well, I
first
hope
on
we
mine.
have I hope you guys have 2 that are probably taking the lead.
Yeah, we're gonna list them, and then we can just if we have one
All
that
right.
is on everyone's list, we
Next.
can discuss.
I'm sorry.
further.
I'm not trying to be rude.
I get it.
Okay.
Skyrim.
Oh, I forgot about Skyrim.
I think Skyrim is one of those games that
Both good choices.
it because like open world games have never at that time, I feel like they didn't work. It was either good combat mechanics but flawed open world, or not an open world, or great gameplay mechanics but a small linear experience. This was one of those first ones that was like, it has a great combat that still to this day is awesome, and fun to play, and people have modded it and done some crazy things with it, but it still holds well, like, to this day, that you can go back and play it. And now you have the chance that you can play it on everything from the Switch to the PlayStation 3,
Literally
the 4.
phone.
You can play it on the Alexa. You can, yeah. I mean, they even made a joke. If you haven't seen it, there's a YouTube video that of I forget the actor, but he's playing it on an Alexa, like, oh, use health potion or whatever, eat 50 like pieces of bread, to heal.
I would love to eat 50 pieces of bread right now.
The game, when I remember first playing it and walking around and just out of nowhere, from the amazing music, you would hear this thunderous roar of a dragon come flying out, and you're like, oh, that's cute. And then he lands in front of you, you're like, oh shit, this just got real. Was an incredible experience that is still awesome to this day. And if anyone has not played Skyrim, it is definitely something, especially the enhanced edition, or if you have an Xbox One with all the mods that you can add.
Yeah.
They even have a VR edition that's really fun to play because you really feel like you're the guy shooting the arrows. It's a blast.
Coming from someone who played it kind of for the first time recently, it feels overhyped now just because it came out such a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're playing it. You're talking about it as game of the decade, and I played it like this year for the first time in VR, and I enjoyed it, but I wouldn't call it game of the decade. But I think.
Well, hang on. We'll hold
yeah.
off for like the
Not
debate.
for me. I guess I should rephrase that. Never mind. Let's just pretend I didn't say that part.
Okay. Do you want me to cut it out of the podcast? No, I'm gonna
Sure.
leave it in. I'm gonna
He has that power. Anyway, so those are my two choices
so-
for game of the decade.
Dan, I'm really glad you mentioned Skyrim, just because I didn't remember to think of that. So here's the thing. When I was coming up with mine, I was thinking more than just the best game. I was considering decade. I was thinking cultural impact and impact in general. That's why I think Skyrim definitely needs to be in the conversation.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
That was huge. Like, everyone and their mom was playing that game. I feel like it was much bigger than Fallout 4 was when Fallout 4 came out. It was much bigger than...
Yeah, and it's pretty much been on every system of the decade,
Yeah,
too.
and it's still all people won't shut the fuck up about
Yeah.
it. Here's a game I'm surprised Dan didn't mention, though, and I'm just going to...
Oh, can I just say also that that game was made released November 11th, 2011. So it has been 9 years, and it's still extremely playable.
Like, it's kind of just got on the Switch, got on VR. Like, that's big. So, here's a game I'm surprised Dan didn't mention, because I figured it would have been, like, number one on his list. Witcher 3.
No, Witcher was great, but I'm trying to think of, like...
Overall. So Witcher 3 to me was just, like, one of the biggest games that came out in the decade, just because it's, like, considered, like, from a studio that self-publishes, like, that's pretty huge. And, again... I'm thinking of like impact, like cultural impact. I don't think without the success of Witcher 3, I don't think Cyberpunk would be coming out. And just everybody I've talked to just has that as like, oh my God, that's my favorite game that has ever come out. Like, that's how big that was, like, graphically and playing wise. Here the other ones. I did have GTA 5 as well on the list. I had Red Dead Redemption as well for kind of the same reasons as GTA 5. Like, that didn't rely on famous voice actors. That was a huge game that came out when it came out. It was basically considered GTA in the Wild West. And, granted, they could kind of like overlap and lump in with each other as kind of being like, hey, Rockstar won the decade. But like, I've always loved Rockstar games. So, Red Dead Redemption for me was huge. Last of Us, most gripping story I've played in such a long time, most emotional story I've played. Dan's mom's calling him right now. I felt the feels with that game. Like, I couldn't leave it off. Obviously, no surprise here, Breath of the Wild. I honestly, if I'm being honest, I don't think it should win Game of the Decade. I'm just saying, like, for what it did for the Zelda franchise, where suddenly, like, it was the first game since the first Zelda where, like, hey, you can go anywhere and do anything you want. I thought that was really huge. And, it sold more copies than it did the Switch console when it came out. I think that's really big. And that's, I just think that's like a really big deal, and I think it helped save Nintendo. It helped make the Switch, like, it's helped sell a console on its like day of launch. It's probably the best launch title of all time. You know, I don't think that should go under the radar, but I understand why. I don't ultimately think it should be the best game of the decade, though. I just think it should be mentioned. Here's the one that I think is going to get the most flack, but you got to hear me out on this one. Pokemon Go.
It's on my list.
Think about this. Think about the impact that this game had. And when I say impact, this reached beyond gamers.
Yeah.
This was huge. Pokemon's been around since its conception in Japan since 1995. That's a long time, and the franchise fell off slowly but surely to just the hardcore fans. Everyone talked about this game. This game was a worldwide phenomenon initially. And granted, a lot of people fell off of it over time, but like you had stories of people like walking in the middle of highways trying to catch that Pokemon. There were people I worked with in my office who don't even play video games, who were playing Pokemon Go or played it as a kid and got back into it because of Pokemon Go. I don't think you can ignore what Pokemon Go was as a phenomenon. And I think
crazy.
it should actually be in the conversation for game. Do I think it's game of the decade? Probably, honestly, not. But I just think you can't not talk about it, though.
Impact, I feel like. If we're talking decade, like...
If we're talking actual gameplay, obviously not.
That's where I would say, like, to the people that were like, oh, Death Stranding's not a game. It's like, yeah, but do you think Pokemon Go is a game? And
here's the thing. That's why I thought...
it's subjective.
Death Stranding was the best game that came out this year. No, but I had to mention it as Game of the Year because of impact. I think that plays a huge role. Was that all I had for 6? Yeah. So basically, just to reiterate, the 6 that I wrote down were Red Dead Redemption, Last of Us, GTA 5, Witcher 3, Pokemon Go, Breath of the Wild, and I'm going to add Skyrim on there because I think that should be in consideration. Even though I didn't write it down, I still definitely agree with that, so I'm going to add that to my list now. Obviously, there's a lot of other... there were other... Originally, my original list was like 25 games long. I had to weed it down eventually. Like, I had things then there like, Halo Reach was really good. Game of the Decade. No. God, no. There were obviously other games that I felt were really fun. Portal 2, amazing game. Game of the Decade. No. God, no. Like, just, little random awesome games that came out. Mass Effect 2 and 3, I think, came out, but not 1. I think 1 came out prior to the decade. But 2 and 3 came out in this decade, I'm pretty sure.
No, it did. Well, no, wait.
Mass Effect 1?
No, you're right. Because
they came out in like 2008 or 9, right?
Yeah, because I remember your roommate.
Pete?
No. Oh, you're right. He wasn't your roommate. Andy. Leighton, yeah, he played it. And I remember looking at it, I was like, oh, this looks
that was prior to us graduating. So
okay, yep. 2010.
All right, Matt, what's your list?
Sure, I'll go through my list kind of quick. So first, I actually had Pokemon Go as well. Just everything you were saying, and just like I live kind of in the suburbs outside of Boston. It was a game that actually got me to go into the city, find an annoying parking spot because that was one of the downsides of the game is the best spots were kind of like where people clustered around.
Not to mention, I forgot to mention the community aspect of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But just like going in on those first few months and just like literally seeing waves of people move in like coordination of this phone game. Like you would hear someone yell, "Oh, hey, there's a Lapras over here," or whatever, like some rare Pokemon, and you would just see like 200 random people just. And
I didn't get to catch that fucking Lapras. I remember that.
Just run across the.
That actually happened.
Yeah, the like lawn of the Boston. It's really cool to see how that played out, and it's like as someone that really kind of enjoys the idea of phone games and kind of gets disappointed every month by the newest games. This is the game that's been on my phone the longest since it came out in I think like 2016. It's the only game that I've never like uninstalled or decided not to play. There's a lot of times where I'll go through where I'll just like won't play it for a while, especially in the winter because again, live near Boston, it kind of gets cold where you don't want to kind of walk around for an hour or two in the
I do drop off in the winter.
But then every summer, it's like something to do. It's a reason to get out of the house and just kind of walk around, which is nice.
It's funny that's also its biggest downfall is that you have to leave the house to play the game.
Yeah, especially it's kind of a bummer that it seems like such a different experience depending on like if you're in like a suburb or a city or like if you're kind of in the country land. I'm sure it wouldn't be nearly as good.
Another negative is if you don't live in an area that doesn't have Pokestops, like you can't
exactly.
can't play it.
I live close to the center of a town, so it kind of works out that it's not like.
Sorry, everybody who lives in Montana.
Yeah. So the next game on my list was Destiny 2. That might be the most fun I've had in kind of a multiplayer setting over the last decade. Specific, just like, it had such good gameplay. Obviously, the people that brought you Halo would be able to do gunplay right, but just going into a raid and like. The raids themselves were very unique. Just the way that they played out, like you really had to strategize, and everyone on your team had to be doing something specifically at the right time. You had to kind of figure it out, especially the first time you were going there, and just like being in a group with people that haven't done it before and figuring out, okay, you have to run through here, and then we have to shoot these symbols in this order when you're doing that. The coordination was kind of like really crazy it's something you would typically only see in an MMO, but to see that in like a shooting game was really cool and unique. The other game, which would be definitely my favorite VR game ever, is Astrobot. Again, that's another game where
that's a great
I don't
game.
think I've like in this decade smiled as much playing and just like giggled like a little kid playing that game, and just like shout out specifically to the music in that game. Really, I think immerses you, because when you're in a VR headset and the music is on point, like you really kind of feel like you're in the world. And like just how much character and how interesting that little Astrobot is. Like you feel like he's like your little buddy the whole time.
Please add that to my missed opportunities.
Oh yeah,
I still need to play that.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone has VR,
I have.
Well, that came out like not this year.
No, but whatever.
last year, yeah. It's criminal if you
link
have
to the
VR
game
and you don't.
or something.
If you
That's
haven't
something
played
I need
that.
to. It's something I need to play.
I think it's on sale now for like $20 or less.
I own it. That's the worst part.
So it's insane.
I own
that
it
you
by
haven't played that.
association.
Yeah.
With both of you.
Yeah, you should definitely play it. You can play.
I mean,
mine.
we've played in like a party setting, but I've never actually, because you're always using that TV. So
Yeah,
It's just a platformer, right? It's a
Yeah,
platformer, and
it's a
you
platformer.
control
I have to
the-
wait for you to do one of your raids in WoW, and then just go and kind of take it over.
Yeah, and it's got like just the right amount of content. After you beat the game, you can beat all the different worlds. It's kind of set up like a typical Mario game, but then afterwards there's like little challenges that you can unlock that make it that are kind of even harder to kind of extend the length. It has a platinum trophy that you can get that's like not super hard to get, but it's still challenging enough that it feels rewarding to get it. So I feel like they kind of balance everything just right. And I pray to God that there's a new Astrobot coming out in the next year or two. They would be stupid not to if they're still going to do VR. The next game is Witcher 3, which you already mentioned. That's a game that I fell into, I think, a little bit later than everyone else. I just couldn't get into the gameplay itself.
I got it day one. We were living together.
Strongest part, but the story eventually, if you stick to it, is worth it.
I'm still a coin flip as to whether or not I'm gonna ever play it, because it's just such a long haul, and
It is.
it's like probably the most.
If you played it on easy and you focused on the main campaign, you could probably
play it on easy.
I thought you guys were big on like just. Yeah, well, I mean,
I'm playing Last Jedi. On
It's
a
not
step
so
up
hard
from
on normal, but it still takes a while.
see, I beat it on Death March. I loved it because
God.
it was
Jeez.
that's because
You
if you played on easy, you can kill anything with a sword.
Now, when you say easy, do you mean normal?
No, easy, like easy.
No,
But
I never played a game
like
on easy.
The second highest so if you're going from the hardest difficulty down, the second one from the most difficult is where you actually use your powers for things, because the first two, the easy and like normal, you don't even need your powers. You can literally just hack everything to pieces, and it doesn't let you use your abilities. And that's the whole point of the game. Is you're supposed to manipulate things.
If I had to pick a missed opportunity of the decade, it would be Witcher 3 for me. That was my missed opportunity of the decade, just because like I know how good the game is.
And I mean, maybe
it's hard for me to sit down and want to play. It's one of those ones where I know if I played for like 4 hours, I'd be like, all right, good, in for the long haul, boom. Like kind of like you said, you let the story ferment for a little bit, and you're like hooked.
Yeah, exactly. It takes a little while to get into, but then you are hooked once you get into it.
It's really well done. I should have put it on my list. I was thinking more of games that have still been an impact, from the time period and are so playable, like to this day, and still sold so much. and have also hit like so many fans. No, The Witcher's great. Maybe with CJ Projekt Red, once you beat Cyberpunk and you've kind of gotten your fill, maybe you'll be like, you know what? Maybe...
I definitely ain't missing out on that one. But
Yeah.
what are your other?
Yeah, so those would probably be my top list. I'm going to just kind of mention a few honorable mentions that I wrote down. Mario Odyssey was a blast playing that. It's another
that was a
Mario
really
game.
good game,
Just kind of, it felt like a really fresh idea on Mario. God of War from last year was a big fun.
These ones you don't think will...
These are honorable mentions.
These are ones I'm not going to fight for. And then Here's the Storm is a game that I played a lot with friends. It's like an online MOBA game with Blizzard characters, which was a lot of fun. Far Cry 3, which, that was another game that kind of opened me up to like how good these Ubisoft open world games can be, and just having that like that enemy character that has so much character to him that's kind of somewhat famous now, just of how well that was crafted and how they haven't really been able to repeat that. And then I was going to say for the Doom remake, which was a lot of fun from 2016. And another, it's always a pleasant surprise when you see all these recycled games, and it seems like they finally, with Doom, with the Resident Evil 2 remake, they seem to actually be getting to the point where they're getting these old ideas and adding like freshness to them where they're still fun, but they still feel like the old thing. Yeah, it seems like something they finally started to hit on. And then the last one, RE2 remake, obviously.
It's funny that we're going to usher in the next decade with a console launch. That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
If I had to pick just a couple more honorable mentions just to throw out there, and Dan, I know you didn't even really get a chance to do that. If there's any you want to, Fallout 4, I played the fuck out of that game for so many hours. Overwatch, I can't ignore how much fun for probably the longest I've ever, if you don't include Halos, one of the longest I've ever played a multiplayer game. That was a lot of fun. I also love Super Mario Odyssey. Unfortunately, the Zelda games, aside from Breath of the Wild, haven't been that great this decade because it was Skyward Sword. Link Between Worlds was fun, but I could sit here all day naming you literally every game I enjoyed. Dead Space is another one I want to mention. The first Dead Space I really loved.
Dead Space came out in 2008.
Never mind.
Yeah, that was an old one. That I remember who told me about that too. It's like, I know this whole...
you know why? I played it later.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's why I thought, because I didn't play it until senior year of college. That was 2010.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
All right.
So let's go through the nominees.
Just in case, is there any honorable mentions you wanted to say, Dan, that games you played this decade that we didn't talk about at all, just to get it out there?
No, I mean, I think we kind of nailed, all the other games that I can think of, I wouldn't even, fight for it, to be in this category. So at this point, they're not even,
it seems
worth it.
I meant just to kind of remember the decade of gaming. The decade brought us, the second half of a generation, as well as pretty much the full generation of...
Yeah, and I feel like this
ones.
generation was a lot better than last generation too. I feel like that last generation was kind of
the 360 generation. I think that's just because how it ended, because it ended on a
I guess you're right. There were a lot of great 360 games, but
it ended with the whole pushing Connect, the Wii U debacle, and PS3 kind of hitting its stride at the end, but still not having a lot of games. But if you think about the bulk of that decade, that console generation, I feel like it brought a lot to us. And then, this generation started off, a little slow, but I think brought us some amazing games. Oh, Horizon Zero Dawn. Mm-hmm. I didn't get to play that yet, but I know I want to mention it as an amazing game. All right, so Dan, you were going to say about what we you looked like you were doing a lot of writing while Matt and I were talking.
No, so I wrote down the actual contenders.
Okay.
And I figured we could go through the list and knock out any of them that we really don't think. I don't know. As much as Astrobot looks pretty neat, I don't know if we can call that a game of the decade, especially when it's a subcategory. It's a VR, so it's kind of tough. So we can
think kind of like all the other. It was still worth bringing up.
So I had listed, because while we were talking, I put down some notes too, that there was basically 5 that are hanging here, and one of them I actually had was Astrobot. I have no problem taking that off because I feel like you guys haven't even played the game. It's just
I've played it, some of it.
Yeah, you haven't played the.
I don't think it's a game of the decade.
You don't have as much love for it. But I guess my thought is that might actually be, if I was to think about this more, that might actually be my game of the decade. So I don't think it's going to be the Manabar Gaming Podcast game of the decade. But
I didn't even think about that. Personally, what would be my game of the decade.
Well, that's why I went with Grand Theft Auto 5 and Skyrim, is because for me, that was the biggest impact in gaming that I can remember in 10 years.
Yeah, but I guess on a personal level.
Yeah.
Like, Matt...
Well, both.
Matt, his game of the decade was Astrobots on, like, more of a personal level. So, but again, I'm surprised Witcher 3 wouldn't be your pick.
No, that time period is not my favorite. Like,
honestly,
modern is kind of like my favorite.
Game of the decade, that's kind of hard for me, even on a personal level. It would be a split decision, I think, between Grand Theft Auto 5 and Breath of the Wild. Just because Skyrim I didn't play enough personally to really consider it on a personal level. But, Breath of the Wild, like, I just kept wanting to go. I still want to go play it right now.
That was okay.
And I'm sorry, Last of Us, right there. Last of Us is right there, too.
So obviously for games that we won't necessarily count, or they probably wouldn't deserve the title of game of the decade, we can recognize them as impactful. So Astrobot would be one, Pokemon Go would be the other.
Yeah.
And then the rest of them are potential candidates. I don't know how I feel about Destiny 2, but
no, I don't think Destiny 2 is game of the decade.
no. So
Yeah, I don't think it
at
would
this
be
point it would be a fight between Skyrim, Grand Theft Auto 5, Breath of the Wild.
Breath of the Wild you can take out, in my
Breath of the
opinion.
Wild. Okay, so we can.
No, again, amazing game. Do I think that it...
I think it has an impact.
I think it has a huge impact, but if I think of like 2010 to 2019, does Breath of the Wild represent that decade? Was it the best game that came out in that decade? Out of the three of us, I probably throw the most love for that game. I absolutely adore the game. It's up there for my favorite Zelda games. I don't know. I don't think so, honestly. And that's coming from me, who's the biggest supporter of it. That's just my opinion. I don't think it would make it.
So, all right, I'm just starring the ones
All right,
that...
asterisk.
No, asterisk is for good. It's the ones...
Oh, I don't even know what your system is over there. What's going on?
No, I'm nominating. So
Dan's really on top of like all this.
down here.
It's like the most productive I've ever seen you.
So, all right, so right now we have a list of 5 for Game of the Decade.
Okay.
So we have Grand Theft Auto 5, we have The Last of Us, we have Skyrim, we have The Witcher 3, and we have Red Dead Redemption.
I'm fine taking Red Dead Redemption out. As awesome as that was, I don't
know how you feel about
I never
that.
went
I
back
loved
and
Red Dead
I'm good with
Redemption.
that.
I thought it was fantastic. It was one of those first games. Sorry, spoiler alert, but the game's been out for a while.
I said I was putting that message out
where
at the beginning of the
the
podcast.
main character is ripped away from your heart and brutally massacred at the very end of the game by a little shit and a little top hat, which just makes it even worse.
So here's the thing. Grand Theft Auto 5, if we're comparing just Grand Theft Auto 5 and Red Dead Redemption, Grand Theft Auto 5, I've gone back and replayed through the entire campaign 3 times. Red Dead Redemption, I only played through once.
Red Dead I've played twice, but
Yeah.
Grand Theft Auto I've beaten twice at least, and
Not to mention
Grand
Theft Auto sold well for 2 generations.
Yeah, it's always
Because it was technically a 360 generation game that was ported in so flawlessly.
and then they added some stuff.
And then, all right, I was going to say this earlier. My one disappointment with Grand Theft Auto 5 is probably the same one you have, is that they never did any like story-based DLC. But think about how impactful the online play has been. It's still so popular. Regardless, none of us at the table play the GTA Online, but you cannot ignore how impactful
I did
the
at
online
first because
has been for that.
I was hoping for a little bit more story. I was hoping it was going to be,
Yeah. Now, and from what I've been told, there is a lot of story in the online version, but I just can't stand GTA Online.
Yeah, no, it's very boring. It doesn't feel like there's an end game. It just feels like time consuming, waste things. But
all right, well, let's just agree that stays on the list for now. I feel like there's some other ones we can whittle it down.
I just want to throw one more honorable mention that none of us want to mention, but we can't ignore how impactful it was. Fortnite. You got to throw it in there. Game of the decade? No.
Hell no.
Nope.
It's not even. It's just battle royale.
I just have to mention that blew up probably bigger than. Oh, I'm
Fortnite.
sorry. Nope. This one has to get added to the list. Minecraft.
Was that this
Yes, it was.
Yeah,
Are
I
you
think
sure?
you're right.
I'm
No, I
pretty sure
think-
that came out.
Oh, did it come out right before originally?
Minecraft. Yeah, I feel like that was in college. Minecraft release date 2009, May 17th. So we just miss it.
But had that come out this decade?
Yes, it would.
That was
Absolutely
huge.
So I love Last of Us, but I feel like
No,
You can
I
take that
understand.
off. It
I
doesn't hang
understand.
with those other ones.
I love The Last of Us as well. It was a fantastic
Last
story.
of Us is probably in my, and I've never done this. This is maybe a good discussion we can have someday as top 10 games of all time, like our personal lists. That would be on my personal list, but I understand not being game of the decade. So I can take that.
All right,
that
so
brings us
we're
down to 3, right?
We're down to 4. So we have Skyrim, Grand Theft. Oh, we're taking Red Dead off.
Yeah.
Red Dead
I
is
would say
off?
so, yeah.
All right, so Red Dead is off. So it is between 3: Witcher 3, Skyrim, and GTA 5.
It's getting cutthroat now.
So
If I'm going to be completely honest, if I had to pick one game that represented the decade better than anything else, and this is coming from someone, and I would say, all right, I want to throw this out here, disclaimer here. I've been very unbiased all day with all of these things. I have thought about this from a lot of different angles, and I'm going to do that again. Basically, I'm just patting myself on the back here.
Okay.
again.
So what is your game of choice?
I would say Skyrim, honestly, because
as game of the decade.
game of the decade, because it came out in 2011 and it's still so prominent. Like, oh my God, people still will just go back and play this game all the time. Like, it's probably Bethesda's best game ever made just from, like, that impactful standpoint. Like, I love Fallout 3. I love Fallout 4. I probably would love Fallout New Vegas if I ever played it. You know, Bethesda right now isn't doing so well, but you cannot ignore what Skyrim was for this decade.
And it makes me really excited for Elder Scrolls 6.
Assuming they can get their act together.
That's true.
And it comes out sometime.
Yeah. So that's just my opinion. Witcher 3 and what was the other one? Grand Theft Auto 5.
Yeah.
I would, if I had to like order them on like what I would pick as game of the decade, would be Skyrim, GTA 5. So Dan, I think you kind of nailed it with your two choices. Like, kudos to you for whittling it down. And then Witcher 3 would be right there because of like how huge that game was. But like GTA 5 you can't ignore just because of like it came out in one generation then crossed over to the other. 2013, that's been wow. Yeah, that's been like
2011. Yep. 11.
No. GTA 5 came out in
GTA 5.
2013. That was a long time ago too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
think about how long that's been out, and the GTA Online
it's
is
still selling.
still popular. And Red Dead Redemption 2's online didn't catch on nearly as much as the GTA Online did, probably because there's no cars. But
Yeah, they're like, oh, I got a fancy horse with gold teeth. And it's not as cool as
What?
my. I'm kidding. You can't do
oh
that.
my God, that's horrific. I honestly would vote for Skyrim. I can't ignore what that game was for this decade and how huge it was. I mean, we have the dragon on the mantle.
I'm just saying I can be swayed, but I just
Swayed for what?
Skyrim. I can be swayed. Like all of these games are absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, all
Grand
the
Theft Auto
games
5.
we
Yeah, Grand Theft.
mentioned today are fantastic games.
Yeah, but I mean, in this category, I feel all three of them are absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
I can go by, and especially with you two just getting an Xbox One, I would highly suggest you guys grabbing Skyrim, the special edition for Xbox, because the sheer amount of mods.
I don't think I could buy that game more than once in a year.
No, but the amount of mods that you can do in that game.
No, I know. I bought it for the Switch. I'm going to try to stick with it for the Switch and try to actually play through the game.
Oh, okay. Because I was gonna say with the mod, like I was an archer in that game, and I hated the how they did the reticle above your head. This one in one of the mods, they made it so it turns like over the shoulder, just like a normal. So they modernized it and made it like a third person, like typical like shooter, and it makes like shooting around like things so much better.
You know what? I just realized it was a sucky decade for both Final Fantasy and Zelda. Like, as a whole. Like, Zelda at the end with Breath of the Wild, obviously, but it started out with Skyward Sword and then a bunch of kind of nothing
What
for
was
Zelda.
so there was Skyward Sword, and then what else?
Link Between Worlds, and like, yeah,
Link Between Worlds was
it ended.
awesome.
No, it was a great game, but the game of the decade. That's what I'm saying. Like, and then Final Fantasy had 13 related games, and then Final Fantasy 15. Granted, Final Fantasy 14 started off as a dumpster fire and then got better. I just want to throw that out there because I thought that was very interesting. That those are all like some of the best franchises ever known, and like. I guess Zelda kind of saved itself with Breath of the Wild and Link's Awakening remake at the end, kind of making it a little better. Final Fantasy, poor Final Fantasy fans.
Yeah.
Well,
This decade
Final
sucks
Fantasy,
for you.
Final Fantasy 7. That's probably why they realized Final Fantasy 7. We've got to put our friggin' thing into it. So, and if they can make that first game feel like a full first game, that could easily be series of the decade.
Matt,
So,
any
Matt.
thoughts?
Yeah, so I kind of agree that Skyrim would probably be my number one choice for this too. I'm going a little differently, and I think Witcher 3 would be probably my second choice, just because I feel like the impact that story has
You
had.
also didn't like GTA 5 as much.
Yeah, I was not a big fan of GTA. I kind of feel like it's like more of the same. Yeah, it's bigger. Yeah, the online's better.
If I play through Witcher 3, my opinion might change. I'm not sure. So that's another thing.
But yeah, like I feel like it's not even like for game of the decade. It's not even my favorite Grand Theft Auto game. Like I prefer Vice City is my favorite Grand Theft Auto game of all time. I feel like the
I
story.
really hope the next Grand Theft Auto is in the 80s.
Yeah, the
I heard they're
story,
going to
the
do like some time
characters,
traveling.
The world was more interesting to me. I do recognize that it's a really fun game, and I think it's partly just me that doesn't like it as much as everyone else too. I just don't like the whole three protagonists that are kind of you're switching between, so you're not. I feel like you're getting 1/3 of the story for three separate people as opposed to like a full giant story where you're really connecting to one person. But I feel like Witcher 3 really kind of set that standard for storytelling and just like what a side quest can be.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of side quests till then were like, you need to kill these 10 boars for me.
Again, like I get pretty bored with those, and that's the reason I haven't played much of Skyrim until lately, is because
Yeah.
I get really bored with those kind of Sword and Shield era games. But like that just shows how good The Witcher must be if I still want to play it. Like it's that push and pull for me. But like, yeah, I got to go with Skyrim. I agree. Dan?
Yep. I mean, the only reason I wouldn't pick the I almost said the switcher, the Witcher, is because I feel like Skyrim kind of, or The Witcher used a lot of like the Skyrim.
Well, I mean, both Matt and I also picked Skyrim over Witcher.
No. But I'm just thinking like I feel like Skyrim is like that pinnacle. And I feel like games after that are kind of like Skyrim's like the OG of like those
everything
the
else is
new
trying to
generation,
copy
and
Skyrim.
it's not that it copied it, but this just made it so good,
Yeah.
kind of like how Resident Evil 4 made that over the shoulder just so good that everyone was like, oh, I can make that a little bit better.
Yeah,
like
Halo,
that was the change.
Halo with the twin stick shooters.
Yeah, so
Or and you could even go further and say that Skyrim was what it was because of Oblivion too, because Oblivion was actually.
Yeah, but this was
big.
one of the first ones that also made it so that third person and first person, it could play really well either way.
Yeah.
So whatever, like I heard people that were like, I played the entire thing in first person. Well, I played the whole entire thing in third person. And it just did a great job of just everything. Like the combat was fun, and
This went way better than Game of the Year. Like we were way more easy. It was way more easier to come to a conclusion.
so
To think that like you could like every object was kind of like movable, and you could kind of there was so many side, like you could actually read every book had like writing in it and
Oh, and
stories
pages and stuff, and
just
oh
to
my God.
and like this is 2011. That was all stuff that wasn't being done before, and
Yep.
like people are all still trying to catch up to this game, which is kind of crazy.
yeah, so it easily would be my game of the decade.
Then that's it.
So-
Skyrim wins it.
Woo!
Deserved.
Now we
Well deserved.
We can look forward to Skyrim on all of the next platforms coming out next year. I'm sure.
God.
Skyrim now on your
HD
fridge.
I will say the one
final edition.
The one thing that's unfortunate about the Switch version is it's not really the remastered version.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like on
But
top
I
of,
can't buy that game again. I already bought it twice.
I know what I'm getting both of you for Christmas.
Get a
So
Christmas present?
yeah, sure.
I didn't get you anything.
Well, I feel like that would be fitting to get you guys the game. of
Last
the
year I got
decade.
Matt some sponges because I threw out his favorite sponge.
That was great. I love those sponges. They got little
No,
smiley
I'll go
faces
to
on them.
GameStop and get you guys Skyrim.
I do want to go to GameStop today if you want to come.
There you go.
Okay. So anyways, yeah, that was our game of the year / decade segments. I hope you enjoy that with us. I hope all of you are enjoying whatever holidays.
Tell us how wrong we were.
Yeah, hey, tell us anything. Tell us what you thought we should have picked for certain categories. Tell us how wrong or right we were. And then also, I just want to throw this out here. We're not doing a real episode next week. So please enjoy your holidays. Or if you don't celebrate anything, enjoy your day off. A lot of establishments have a Christmas day off.
Or if you're working, enjoy that too, I guess.
I'm sorry if you're working. If you're working, hey, brave soul.
I've had to work on Christmas. It's not fun.
Hopefully you get time and a half or something.
I worked in a pharmacy.
Oh, yeah. No, I never worked on Christmas, luckily, because, all of my jobs didn't require me to be there. But, hey, boys, working, I don't know. Should Matt and I even bother telling people where to find us? Neither of us are on anything.
Yeah, you should probably just follow Dan because he's actually good at this.
I'm just going to start throwing out You know what? They could still come at us with things.
I try and throw your names out there, like, hey, Highland Andy, finish this game, or I try.
I'm more
2020, I'm going to be better at it.
Yeah. New Year's resolution, Matt. Me and you.
Yep, we're going to be better at the Twitter game.
I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing. All right, I got a high five. They kind of looked at me like,
one tweet a day. I do put out some Instagram stuff.
You do. Well, you initially tweeted, and I take that, and I because obviously Twitter, you only have a certain number of characters,
Yeah.
so I try and pick the big ones out of that.
All right,
thing,
boys,
so.
where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Matt Talks Games.
You can find me, Dan, on Twitter at Game Review Guy.
And you can find me at Highly and Andy on Twitter. You can find the podcast at manabarpodcast on Twitter or on Instagram at the manabarpodcast. And you can also email us anytime at manabarpodcast@gmail.com. Here's to the next year of gaming. And I actually think we have one more episode this year before the year actually ends. And with that, this is the Trophy Hunter, the Collector, and the Procrastinator. Logging off. Yep, new year, new name. That's what's going to be. Bye.